FEMA was never designed to be the first responder. That's the states. FEMA was designed to be the assistance to the states when the disaster reaches certain levels, which we need to discuss those too, because I think some of the levels are unrealistic, especially with Senator Hassan and I have talked about this, that sometimes in rural areas, they're not able to meet those thresholds.
Good morning. Good morning,
Working
T
with the
Sippers.
state,
Good
allowing the
morning.
state to have the emergency response. FEMA simply helping write checks and assuring that they have the capability and the manpower if need be. But for the FEMA to walk in like FBI walking on a crime scene and taking over,
We're listening
no
to
one's going to care more about their backyard than the people that live there in that state. And I
Markwayne
think there's a
Mullin
lot of good ideas. I've heard at meeting
confirmation.
with so many of you all, there were so many great
The
ideas on how to make
DHS
FEMA work better. It's got a great
replacement
mission.
for
And I think people at FEMA want to do their job, but we can
Christine
be more effective
Nomi.
and be more direct and speed it up. Taking years to get reimbursed is not acceptable. Taking, honestly, months to get reimbursed is not acceptable. See, small municipalities, they can't afford it. They don't have that tax base to do it. And they're already going through a struggling time, which means they're probably losing tax revenue, especially if it's their town. So we've got a lot of work there. I do believe that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That means we're going to look at each one of the 22 agencies that fall underneath DHS and say, how can we deliver the mission better for the American people?
It's great. That'd be a huge help to everybody. Talking about the length of time it takes to get a response, you've been a part of, as I have, on the nonprofit security grants that are out there. We have some locations that are higher risk than others. Synagogues and temples have been one of those very high-risk locations that are out there. Last week in Michigan, we had another situation where a absolute terrorist drove a vehicle packed with explosives into a Jewish daycare, intending to kill as many Jewish children as he possibly could. And that was his intent, was to be able to do that. That location happened to be one of the locations where there's also been this nonprofit security grant to help harden that facility. We have multiple challenges here. One of them is when the decision is made, they make a request, go through the paperwork, get approval to be one of those locations that we say, hey, we need to harden this location. Once the approval is done, it may take months
Tulsi
to over a
Gabbard
year
is
just
testifying
for the
as
dollars
well.
to actually come on it, because there's more bureaucratic hoops to go through. So as you're dealing with things like contracts that are out there and the way decisions are made, or FEMA, that's one of the areas I would encourage you to take a look at. I know you're very passionate about. How do you fix the issue where approval's been done and everyone's saying, great, can we get to work? And the federal government says, no, you can't actually get to work. You got to wait some more before the actual work can actually begin to do that. How does that get fixed?
We got to streamline the process and cut out the redundancies. The amount of paperwork, the senator from Michigan and I had a long conversation about this, the amount of paperwork to just, once you're approved, to get the funding flowing, and then the paperwork that's followed up on it is way too encumbersome. And there's a better way to do this. Some of these policies I have to work with you guys on. Some of these grants were written with checks and balances, which we all got to be very cautious on how we spend the taxpayer dollars. Things that I can change, things that I can cut out on the redundancy part of it, I will work with. Things that, as the senator and I talked about, things that it may take you to make changes on, we'll bring it to your attention. I will work with you, and we'll see how we can make it better.
Great. As you know, Oklahoma's been one of the leaders in counter drone. This is a big issue for us as a country. Every high school football game, every college football game, every gathering of people for every festival and gathering across the country has now become a risk location for drones and drone mitigation. FBI can't be everywhere. We don't want them to be everywhere. We do have to figure out some process. So as you begin to think about this issue, it's a tough one to be able to deal with, but it is a basic national security issue as well. It's going to land on your desk pretty quickly, especially with the Olympics coming, with FIFA coming, all those things that are happening. We got to be able to figure out how to do counter drone and to be able to not just identify there it is, but to also mitigate the risk. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I'd love to speak about that. With funding, talking to some of our agency heads, with a lack of funding right now, we have people quitting because they got to go to work. Meeting these demands are even going to be tougher. So we just talked about FIFA, for instance, and then you talk about 2028, which is going to be the busiest year of DHS. And why should you rethink your power source?
traditional generators, loud,
Please hit the like
serving
button as you
outdoors,
enter in. I
unbearable
would greatly
indoors.
appreciate it.
Jackery, whisper quiet, perfect for indoors or out. Enjoy peaceful living. Traditional generators, toxic fumes, high CO risk, outdoor use.
People to stay on the job and work. We're losing institutional knowledge. We're losing people we've already trained, and it's going to be difficult to deliver this mission. The way that I understand is we're behind in UAS, and we're behind in FIFA right now on actually delivering the mission that we have to. We're also behind in reimbursing local communities that's also working with us. That's going to have to take a tremendous amount of focus and partnership. And we, like I said in my opening statement, failure is not an option, so we've got to deliver. But sometimes when you have to rush like this, especially trying to get people on the job because we just quit funding them for the third time in less than a year, and we expect these people to keep working, it puts the mission at risk, and we have a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up. Christy, thank you. It's a strain on the family and everything else right now. So thanks y'all for stepping into this role. Look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you.
Senator Kim.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Mullin, thanks for coming out here. I wanted to just start. Secretary Noem said in a cabinet meeting about almost exactly a year ago today that we should be eliminating FEMA. Can you commit to us here that you don't support that approach and you wouldn't attempt to eliminate FEMA?
As I said, I think it needs to be restructured, not eliminated.
I think there is going to be bipartisan support for reforms. I think we all understand that. We certainly saw a lot of problems when it came to Superstorm
Janet.
Sandy. I asked Secretary Noem to work with us, especially as they were going about their FEMA Review Council. I'll be honest with you, that never materialized. We did not see the kind of engagement here that we're ready to have. We have a bipartisan group of senators that want to come up with reforms. Is that something you can commit to working with us on?
Senator, I think all of us that's been either in the House or in the Senate always complain about the outreach of agencies. I will make a commitment to you that I'm going to have the best. It's going to take a couple months to stand it up, but we're going to have the Ledge Affairs shop that you're going to know who the person is. We're going to work with you, but most importantly, I think everybody on this dais has my personal cell phone. That cell phone isn't going to change. And if you call me, you're going to get a response. If you text me, we're going to get a response.
So when we have this FEMA Review Council report finally come out, is that something you'll come to us first and engage with us on rather than just implementing straight out from the executive branch on your own?
Senator, I'm pretty sure that you guys set the policies and the mission for FEMA. So for any serious changes, it may take actually policy changes. And I will be in your office talking to you about it.
I appreciate that, but we've seen a lot of significant problems happen. For instance, we saw about 2,400 staff cuts at FEMA. And again, we're not talking about the reforms, but we're talking about those that are trying to respond to these disasters every single day. So I wanted to ask if you're confirmed if you will stop these dangerous staff cuts that have reduced FEMA's disaster readiness.
Senator, I'm not trying to play politics, but what's been the biggest disaster is not funding them 3 times in a year. However, some of these agencies under the current administration, not some, all of them got very bloated with having too many employees.
You think there's still too many staff at FEMA?
Senator, I can't answer that. When I get there, we'll be adequately staffed to respond to our nation's disasters. But it's going to take some time to get there because, like I said, people are quitting today because they're not getting paid for the 3rd time in a year, and we can't allow that to take place.
I agree, and I hope that we can move forward on that. But one thing that has demonstrated a lack of priority by this administration is the fact that we never actually had a full nominee for FEMA. So I just wanted to ask, do you agree that we need an actual nominee to be a full FEMA administrator that has real experience in emergency management?
Absolutely. We're already looking at some in the case that we do get confirmed, which I'm hopeful we do. We are making that a priority in each one of our agencies. But the confirmation also has to go through you, and we know.
I get it, but at least we can get a nominee before us, and I think that that's something I hope to take away. That is a commitment you'll make.
Honestly, by the experience that I've had, which has been an interesting experience, it's a lot to ask someone, and they got to be fully committed. If they go through this process, it's tough. So I would ask you if I do this, give them a fair shake. For me, a lot of you guys aren't giving me a fair shake to even earn your support. So if I bring somebody else into it, maybe you'll give them a fair shake and you'll actually work with them, because I'm going to find somebody that is capable of doing the job, that's smarter than me at doing the job, that has experience doing the job. But when they come to your office and ask for your support, don't tell them it's politics. Don't say I can't. Don't say that, hey, I supported the previous one, but I got burned on that one, so I can't support you. We'll trust, but see, just give them a fair opportunity, and you might actually like the person.
And look, it's not just about the person; it's about the policies writ large. And then, look, what we saw before this policy that required her approval for anything that was going out the door, grants, funding, when it over $100,000. And I'll be honest with you, it was disastrous. It held up so much of the funding to FEMA and other parts of DHS. Senator Peters and I did a review of this. Over 1,000 FEMA contracts, grant, disaster assistance awards were delayed. So I wanted to ask you if you can commit to revoking this $100,000 policy by Secretary Noem.
Sir, we talked in your office about that, and absolutely. That's called micromanaging, and I don't know if Secretary put that in or someone else did. I'm not a micromanager. We put people in, we empower them.
So that means that you're just going to let them do whatever they want to do.
We'll make decisions. We will have a very clear line of communication with every one of our agency's heads on their authority that is given to you, that you gave to them within their parameters, and we'll discuss. But we're also going to be very responsible for the taxpayer dollars. But it's unrealistic to some degree.
It's just adding so much red tape, though. I mean, they could have delayed, especially when it came to disaster response and the Texas floods. I want to switch gears here. This is something you remember we talked about, but we have this effort right now. ICE has purchased a warehouse in Roxbury, New Jersey. It's a facility the size of 8 football fields to house over 1,500 detainees. Never once did an ICE official go and talk to the local mayor, talk to the local law enforcement, assess the situation alongside the locals. So I just wanted to ask you, is that fair that DHS is imposing these types of large-scale detention facilities without local engagement and input?
Sir, being from small rural Oklahoma, it's a big impact, and the community should be visited with, especially when you start taking a warehouse off. It takes it off the tax roll, which could make a huge impact, and you got to deal with impact aid if they're eligible for it. And then you got to talk about infrastructure. One thing I do know is construction. When you start talking about infrastructure on these places, a warehouse sprinkler system is much smaller than when you are housing individuals there. And if you say, I think you said the town has 60,000 people, and I believe you said this was
smaller than that.
Is it smaller than that? So
about 22,000 people,
okay, and
of
the
which the detainees and the staff there would constitute about 10% of the population of that town.
Yeah, and realistically, it's not. Most municipalities don't have the capacity in their infrastructure for waste and water. So it's important that we're talking to the communities, and if we're having additional needs, we can work with the cities, we can work with the municipalities, but we should always communicate with them.
I agree with that, and this town has only 42 police officers, a volunteer fire department. Does that sound like the kind of town that has the resources to take on a warehouse of this magnitude?
Sir, I don't know the circumstances behind this other than what you and I talked about. I committed to you when I visited with you in your office. We'll talk. I even said, let's you and I get on the phone with the mayor. If I'm confirmed, I'll make a trip out there and see it for myself, because it's a big concern of yours, and we want to address those concerns. And if it's not practical, but I also said it's got to be, there may be a specific reason why it's there. If I can't explain that to you, then that's a different story. But if there's a specific reason I can explain it to you to make it make sense, let's talk about it. But if not, then maybe we can be better partners moving forward.
I'm glad that you commit to talk. I asked ICE to send us about their evaluations of the warehouse. We've still yet to get it. Will you commit that that is something that we can get?
Yeah, the documents are available, yes, but I've also offered something much better. I'll go with you personally and look at it.
That's something that the local community will appreciate, and I hope that you will reassess this warehouse.
As I said in my opening statements, but we also want peace of mind and bring back confidence to the Department of Homeland Security. And all this means that we got to work on it, and I will work on it.
Senator Scott. Simone, congratulations on your nomination.
Oh, he got an
It's a
attitude.
great honor that you have, and
He
you have a
has an
background, so
attitude.
I know you work your butt off in the job, like you do everything else. President Trump was elected to secure our border, crack down on sanctuary cities, and keep our country safe. I want to thank the President for his leadership and Secretary Noem's help. Incredible progress has been made. Our streets are safer, our borders respected, and the jobs we've created are going to people in this country legally. Now, as a result of the Democrats' partial shutdown, in the fourth week, TSA agents are not getting paid. Everybody in the Senate's getting paid. I've had a bill since I got up here. If we don't pass budgets, we shouldn't get paid. I've had one of my Democrat colleagues say, oh, I've got a mortgage. I have to get paid. But think about all these people. TSA agents are not getting paid. Airlines or airport lines are in gridlock. We got FEMA grants stalling.
also have,
Coast Guard counterterrorism operations are shrinking amid rising Iranian threats to our homeland. My understanding is ICE agents are getting paid, but not ICE leadership is necessarily getting paid. Last week, 2 terrorists boldly and hatefully attacked our citizens right here on our home soil, killing at least 1 person. The president's decision to stop the nuclear weapons and the ballistic missiles was a reason making sure we don't get these attacks.
hold on, let's get to
It was only as a result of
hold
brave
on,
actions
let's
of a massive
switch
team of
gears.
military officers, citizens, and law enforcement that stopped these
Hold
tragedies.
on.
They could have been massacres. Still, even as Americans are losing their lives, my Democrat colleagues are refusing to fund
I want to hear
DHS,
this one
give them
too.
what they need to uncover and stop plots like these and protect the lives of our families and neighbors. It seems like that's our job up here. So, Senator Mullin, how do you view Senate Democrats
Hold on, sir.
recklessly?
So, Director, in the lead up to the start of this war 3 weeks ago, did the intelligence agencies stick to their assessment that in response to an attack, the Iranians have the capability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz?
Thank you, Senator Wyden. The intelligence community has continued to provide the president and his team with the intelligence related to this operation in Iran before and on an ongoing basis.
So, right now, we're in a global energy crisis. We're paying more for gas. The economy is in danger. And it seems to me, and I heard you discuss this with Senator Warner too, that there's a lot of hedging going on with respect to entirely foreseen consequences of the war. And that strikes me, Madam Director, as what amounts to a historic mistake. Now, my second question is, did the intelligence agencies assess that the Iranians could respond to a regime change attack from us by attacking U.S. forces and other Americans in the region?
The IC assessment has always taken very seriously the threat of the Iranian regime's missile capabilities and how our American troops within the region may be put at risk.
Again, you know, it seems to me, with Americans dying in the war, it's hard to see how you can sit here and say that the intelligence agencies couldn't provide a clear warning that if attacked, the Iranians would respond by attacking our people. Now, on Monday, Madam Director, Donald Trump was asked about Iranian strikes on the Gulf states. He said, and I quote, no, the greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit the Gulf states. You all are supposed to be the greatest experts. That's what we have you there for. Director Gabbard, did the intelligence agencies assess that Iran could conduct strikes on our own partners in the region if there was attack?
The intelligence community has continued to assess the potential threats to the region, the existing threats to the region, and providing those assessments to the policymakers and decision makers.
Let me move on to several others of you with respect to 702 of FISA, and I'm just going to start with you, General Hartman. When Congress last reauthorized Section 702 of FISA, it included a provision that expanded the type of companies and individuals who could be forced to assist the government in its spying. Has this expansion resulted in any intelligence, General Hartman?
Senator, thanks for the question. Just to be clear, this provision provided us an ability to collect foreign intelligence on personnel outside of the United States.
This is the major 702 issue in terms of expansion. What was the effect of it? What was done?
Senator, I would prefer to talk to you about exact specifics in the closed session.
I'm happy to do that. Let's understand, though, this is a dangerously broad provision that could be used to rope in anybody with access to a cable box, a Wi-Fi router, or a server. It was jammed into the 2024 reauthorization bill at the last minute. Senators were told they had no choice but to support it. And now, 2 years later, we've just had testimony from a very respected individual who's saying, so far it has had no value. So colleagues, we are getting ready to have another discussion on this, and this ought to be a warning to every senator that not every new spying power that is sold as urgent and critical actually is.
Senator, could I please respond to that?
Of course.
So Senator, I just want to be clear.
I don't know
It
which one to
provided
watch.
us no additional authority.
This
Doesn't
one or
involve
the,
collecting intelligence on foreigners that are
Mark
outside
Wayne.
the United States of America.
Fine. Director Patel, a question for you. In 2023, your predecessor testified that, and I quote, "To my knowledge, we do not currently purchase commercial database information that includes location data derived from internet advertising." Is that the case still? And if so, can you commit this morning to not...
For the moments worth making without interruption, Jackery powers your passion quietly. It's more than a get-together. It's the soundtrack of your summer. Keep the good times rolling in perfect harmony.
The FBI uses all tools in our question to do our mission. We do purchase commercially.
we know
available
he lying.
information that's
He don't know what he
consistent
talking
with the
about.
Constitution and the laws under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and it has led to some valuable intelligence.
Can't
for
believe
us
nothing
to
he
utilize
said.
for private partner sector.
So you're saying that the agency will buy Americans' location data? I believe that that's what you've said in kind of intelligence lingo, and I just want to say, as we start this debate, doing that without a warrant is an outrageous end run around the Fourth Amendment. It's particularly dangerous given the use of artificial intelligence to comb through massive amounts of private information. This is Exhibit A for why Congress needs to pass our bipartisan, bicameral bill, the Government Surveillance Reform Act. I have time, I believe, for one more question. Director Patel, you 3 weeks ago indicated you were dissatisfied about having your phone records subpoenaed. Do you think the government ought to get a court order to collect phone records?
Senator, in my experience, the government does get court orders to obtain phone records.
One last question. General Adams, for you, in 2021, your agency confirmed that it had purchased and
We are
searched
totally done.
domestic location
Most
data.
just
Is
don't
still
see it
your agency's position that you can buy American
right now.
location data without a warrant? And if so, are you
You're
still
probably
doing it?
right.
Senator, thanks for the
Unless
question.
God come
With
in
regards
and
to
shake things
commercially
up.
Available information and publicly available information. The purchases
Mila.
that this agency, that my agency makes, is in alignment with the Constitution and protects U.S. persons' information.
So, but you're buying location data, correct? And we've now had that referred to twice, and I don't think there's any question that you're doing it.
All of the purchasing of commercially available information by the agency is passed through legal channels and is in complete compliance with laws.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
General Hartman, I want to give you a chance to answer more specifically what Senator Wyden said. You did answer it indirectly. Does anything in Section 702 give the government the authority to target any American with a cable box or a Wi-Fi router?
Chairman, nothing in 702 gives us the authority to target an American with a cable router or a Wi-Fi router.
Thank you. And I would observe about commercially available data that the
How
keywords are
old is
commercially
this is live.
Any other person can buy it, and the FBI can buy it, and it helps them locate a depraved child molester or savage cartel leader. I would certainly hope the FBI is doing anything they can to keep Americans safe. It's not much different from longstanding Supreme Court precedent. For instance, says law enforcement can go through trash that you put on the side of the curb because you no longer have a privacy interest in it. Senator Cornyn.
Thank you all for your service to our country and the people you represent. We are in debt to all of you. I want to ask you, Director Ratcliffe, yesterday, the head of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned, saying that Iran did not represent an imminent threat to the United States.
So there's your answer right
Is there
there.
anything to indicate
He resigned
that Iran
yesterday.
had ceased
So right now it's
nuclear
live.
ambitions or in its desire desire to continue to build ballistic missiles capable of threatening American troops and allies in the Middle East?
Senator, no, in fact, the intelligence reflects the contrary.
So you disagree with Mr. Kent?
I do.
I would think any fair-minded assessment of the situation, even based on open sources, would reflect the danger the regime poses to the United States. Isn't it true they've basically been at war with the West since 1979 during the Iranian Revolution and have American blood on their hands?
That's absolutely correct. I think Iran has been a constant threat to the United States for an extended period of time and posed an immediate threat at this time.
The threat assessment
Oh, I appreciate the mass
says that
walkout.
Al-Qaeda and ISIS maintain
If things are that bad,
operations targeting the U.S.
hold
means
on.
most likely
I think if you stay in something that you know is wrong and against you morally, ethically, and are breaking the law, I think that it's commendable that someone walks out. I think it's absolutely commendable that they will not compromise their integrity and continue for a paycheck. That's just my opinion. I appreciate it. Instead of just going along to get along and breaking laws, disregarding the Constitution of the United States. Yeah, no. That fight in Israel is not, it's going to cost billions anyway, Mila, because the president of the United States did not go through the proper operating procedures. He insists on milking our system, milking our government, stealing, for the rights of Israel, not us. So all the money that's being spent right now is stealing because he didn't go through the proper channel. So if somebody knows that they are stealing and there's nothing that they can do about it to stop it, bravo to them for walking up and saying, I don't want to be a part of it. So the person who walks out is not bankrupting our country. Trump is. Okay, so who fault is it for us costing us billions of dollars? The people that walk out are the ones who continue to steal with the president because the president say, give it to me. Yeah, no. I appreciate him walking out. Him walking out lets us know how really bad it is on the inside. You got to think outside your box. That's just my opinion. Thank you, Janet.
to occur through U.S.-based lone offenders. I want to ask you, Director Patel, it seems like there's been a raft of incidents recently. On March the 1st in Austin, Texas, where I live, a lone gunman wearing a sweatshirt saying property of Allah, and who the t-shirt he wore underneath had an Iranian flag, killed 3 innocent people and injured 12 more. And then
This
we know
is
in,
release the
Virginia,
Epstein
Pennsylvania
files
shooting,
war.
somebody who unbelievably
This is
was
a
sentenced to 11 years
pro-Israel
in federal prison for
war.
attempting to
Let's be
support
clear.
ISIS, but
Call
then
it what
was
it is.
only to commit another terrorist attack. We all are familiar with what's happened in Michigan, in New York, and I applaud the important role that the FBI has played in stopping some terrorist attacks, but obviously the FBI can't be everywhere all the time. Would you please talk about your cooperation and collaboration with Homeland Security investigations in countering terrorist attacks against the United States?
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely. It is essential that the FBI cooperates with the entire interagency. But as to your question about DHS specifically, Well, we have stood up around the country of 59 Homeland Security task forces in 59 separate locations.
These are joint terrorism task forces.
Essentially, the JTTF model was expanded. So the FBI owns 56 joint terrorism task forces in each of our field offices. On top of that, we have 59 HSTFs, which are co-led by the FBI and DHS. And what that allows us to do is things like we did down in New Orleans just over the holiday period, where we surged for a 6-week period of time, and where we dropped the murder rate by double-digit points, and also was the first time that Mardi Gras in its entire history had not one homicide. So when you bring the powers of the Homeland Security folks, DHS, and the FBI together, this is the purpose of it, to get after not just the terrorism threat, but the violence and the criminal activity in our cities. And that's why we're in 59 cities across the country, and it's working in places like Memphis and every other city we have it.
Are you aware of the fact that Homeland Security investigation is a major directorate within Immigration and Customs Enforcement?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And are you aware that Senate Democrats have uniformly voted not to fund the Department of Homeland Security, including Homeland Security investigations, TSA, FEMA, and other functions of the Department of Homeland Security?
Senator, I'm aware that employees of DHS are 1 month without pay.
They're not being paid, right?
Yes, sir.
And we were all seeing what's happening at airports, where people are having to wait hours at a time because of the fact that these TSA agents are overburdened. But what I wanted to focus on with you is the refusal to fund the functions of the Department of Homeland Security, including Homeland Security investigations, making Americans less safe?
Absolutely.
So give us an example of some of the cooperation that you all have engaged in with, the FBI has engaged in with the Homeland Security investigations. I'm looking at an article here that talks about the 190,000 Afghan nationals that were admitted to the United States, literally unvetted. And there are examples of individuals within that 190,000 who committed the terrorist attacks against the United States and against American citizens. Is that the sort of thing that you are investigating with HSI?
Senator, that's one of the many things we're investigating with HSI, DHS, CBP, ICE.
Give me some other examples of the collaboration on what other topics, including in addition to terrorism attacks.
What we're allowed to do with our DHS partners, Senator, is enable their massive workforce to supplement ours. And what they're allowed to do is share intelligence on things that you just talked about the 100,000+ illegals that came in from Afghanistan during the Afghanistan withdrawal. Unfortunately, they weren't vetted thoroughly. So what we're doing is going back with our DHS partners and vetting absolutely every single one of them to the best that we can. But unfortunately, we're not able to go out into the country and find every single one of these individuals. But we need more than 12,000 FBI agents to do that job, which is why we are utilizing the 100,000 or so 1811s at the Department of Homeland Security to give us the information they have from their immigration records, from their travel records, from their travel logs overseas and within the country. And what we're able to do is remove
travel logs
off the streets in every single city across the country, to include violent.
They want to know everywhere you go.
Nicaragua, to include ISIS-affiliated individuals, to include Al-Qaeda-related
Travel
individuals.
logs.
And hopefully, we do it before.
New World Order.
After, like the tragedy that we witnessed in Washington, D.C., where an individual from Afghanistan was allowed to enter into our country and shot multiple members of our uniformed military service.
Thank you, Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do need to point out in response to some of the previous comments, twice in the last 2 weeks, as recently as last Thursday, Senator Patty Murray, the Appropriations Committee, put a bill on the floor that would have fully funded TSA, FEMA, CISA, and the Coast Guard for the rest of the year, leaving the focus on the dispute that we have with the conduct of ICE as separately. So inexplicably to me, that bill was blocked by my Republican colleagues. It would have, as I say, fully funded TSA, FEMA, CISA, Coast Guard, and then focus the attention on the situation with ICE. So I just want to be clear on who's blocking funding for those 4 agencies. I'd like to ask Ms. Gabbard and Director Ratcliffe, Director, both of you, were either of you in the room or your designees when the President was making the final decision about taking this action against Iran on February 27th, 28th? Was there an intelligence committee, intelligence community present in those deliberations? Mr. Ratcliffe, your response?
Senator King, probably in dozens and dozens of briefings with the president. I don't know if there was a single meeting where there was a single time where a decision was made.
Were those dozens of meetings right during the lead up to this war? I know you met many times, but I'm talking about it in the 2 weeks or so before the decision to go into Iraq.
Yeah, again, countless meetings with the president.
During that period?
During that period.
Director Gabbard, were you present in those discussions?
Likewise, yes.
The reason I'm asking the question is there seems to be a discrepancy between what the Intelligence Committee the community has reported over the years and what the President has said in terms of this action. For example, Senator Wyden read the report from a year ago that strikes against neighboring states and action to close the Strait of Hormuz was predicted by the Intelligence Committee. And yet the President says nobody knew. And my question is, did you tell him? Anybody want to answer that question?
Don't nobody want to
I'll,
answer that?
Answer the question. So, with regard to briefings, the president gets briefings constantly about intelligence. Now, the comments that you talked about, I had not heard. What I can tell you is that Iran had specific plans to hit U.S. interests and energy sites across the region, and that's why the Department of War and the Department of State took measures for force protection and personnel protection in advance of Operation Epic Fury. I think that's what's most important.
Any predictions to the President about the Strait of Hormuz? All you got to do is look at a map and you'll see the vulnerability of the Strait of Hormuz. Was that part of the briefing, Director Gabbard?
I think the Director Ratcliffe made the point here is that this has long been an assessment of the IC, that Iran would likely hold the Strait of Hormuz as leverage.
And my question is, was that communicated to the President in the lead up to this action?
And it's because of that long-standing assessment that the IC has continued to report that the Department of War took the preemptive planning measures that it did.
Well, they've stated that they did not plan for the Strait of Hormuz. The President said, who knew that was going to happen? Anyway, let's move on. Does the President take a daily brief from the intelligence community? This is a yes or no question.
Yeah, the president, I would say, Senator, in my estimation, on average, I brief the President of the United States on intelligence probably on average 10 to 15 times a week, where I have conversations with him about specific, discrete issues. Sometimes there are dedicated sessions that last hours in length. Sometimes I'm briefing him on specific issues, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. But I would say on average, my interactions where I'm briefing the President on important national security matters happens probably on average 10 to 15 times per week.
Thank you. Could you update us on the intelligence on Russian intelligence sharing with Iran in the current conflict? What do we know?
Senator, if there is that sharing going on, that would be an answer that would be appropriate for a closed session.
Well, it's been in the public press. This is open source that it's
Yeah.
occurring.
Why does it need to be hidden?
Is it occurring?
Again, if it is occurring, that would be an answer appropriate for a closed session. What I can tell you is that according to the Department of War,
no transparency.
any support that Iran may be receiving is not inhibiting their operational effects.
Okay, that's sort of the first cousin of a guess. According to intelligence analysis, can regime change or the elimination of the estimated 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium be accomplished without boots on the ground?
Senator, the discussion about the Iranian nuclear capability, we intend in the closed session to talk about that a great deal. With regards to revealing any information about the ability to do that, I would have to defer that to closed session.
I'll see you in an hour. Finally, there was very little, if anything, in the report, in the assessment about climate change, and that's been in past reports. There is a lot of discussion about migration. The estimates are that climate migrants, because of the changes in the climate and the atmosphere, and particularly in the center equatorial area of the Earth, will range from 200 million to 1 billion people by 2050. Do you believe that is a national security threat that should be addressed? The Syrian refugees were about 6 million, and they upset the politics of Europe for several years. We're talking about 200 million to 1 billion people on the move. I believe that's something we should be discussing and that the intelligence community should be assessing. Director Gabbard.
Yes, Senator, there are a number of drivers of things like migration. It would be an extensive and voluminous annual threat assessment if we included every single one. This annual threat assessment is focused again on the priorities laid out by the President's national security strategy and on the effects that we can take action, operational action.
I hate they just can't answer the question and
Combating climate change.
take you around the corner and down the street.
On the matter of media reports about Russian or Chinese collaboration with Iran, I would point out that the media is not a classification authority. And that kind of story, whether true or not, might be better suited for the FBI to investigate on whether there's been unlawful disclosures of classified information. I would also say it sounds like something Russia and China would do. Communist Russia used to do it during the Cold War, and Communist China has always done stuff like that. On the Patty Murray legislation, not only would it have defunded ICE and CBP, it would have also defunded Homeland Security investigations, which do critical work on our streets to protect our communities from financial crimes, from predators, from transnational gangs as well. So while we would all like to see the TSA and the Coast Guard and other critical parts of Homeland Security as well, we do not want to defund the police, this time the immigration police. Senator Moran.
Chairman, thank you. I believe that it's in the U.S.'s national interest, our security interest, for Ukraine to be successful in defeating the Russian invasion. I'm concerned with the consequences of Operation Epic Fury on that ability of Ukraine to succeed in defending its borders. And General Adams, in broad terms, not necessarily, not classified terms, what are the consequences to the supply chain, to the capability of the United States to supply NATO allies and Ukraine as a result of Operation Epic Fury? My question is, that usual problem, how do we do both? Are we doing both? Is U.S. support maintained or diminished for Ukraine as a result of Epic Fury?
Senator, thank you for that question, and we do continue to, beyond Epic Fury, observe what is happening across the world in crises like Russia and Ukraine. Unfortunately for the situation there now, just based on the force composition and the delta between the Russian forces and the Ukrainian forces, the advantage is to the Russians. As we get into the classified hearing, we can talk a little more specifically about the items with regards to the supply chain and with regards to the information that the Defense Intelligence Agency collects. We look at the foreign threat and what their capabilities are from a multi-end perspective. We
look a little bit less at friendly capabilities. And I would defer questions with regards to U.S. supply chain limitations with regards to the logistics and the effort that the Secretary of War is having with regards to trying to boost the U.S. Defense Industrial Base. I would defer those to the department to discuss.
Well, General, please be prepared for the classified session for me to continue to pursue this. I mean, our supply chain issues are not classified in the sense that every hearing I'm in as a defense appropriator has officials from the Department of Defense testifying about the need for further assistance. And really, I'm asking for the facts of what has happened as a result of Operation Fury, Epic Fury, in the last few weeks in our supply to Ukraine and our NATO allies who are supplying Ukraine.
Yes, sir. The department is executing a comprehensive, in fact, the SecWar has gone around the nation to boost the Defense Industrial Base. We know for a fact that we have to increase our Defense Industrial Base capability. Its impact based on the munitions expended during Epic Fury will be an impact, but we need to boost it. The efforts are underway to boost it, and
Well, I'm interested in helping accomplish that goal. Director Ratcliffe, perhaps along the same line, I assume let me first of all compliment you on your public service. I appreciate you. And that's not my usual town hall meeting when I get a compliment from somebody who then follows it with a but. I am interested in being of help, and in regard to your conversations in preparation for Epic Fury, I'd be interested in knowing if the consequences to our abilities to defend the United States against Russia or China or other adversaries was taken into account. How is that diminished or increased by Operation Epic Fury? And particularly in this instance about what it means, was the conversation had about what it means to our ability to help Ukraine defend itself? U.S. support for Ukraine includes military and other assistance, but also we've undertaken economic sanctions against Russia for their invasion of Ukraine. And Epic Fury has caused a significant increase in oil prices, and the administration has waived sanctions against Russian oil companies, which are reported to say that Russia is receiving $150 million per day additional dollars as a result of the waiver. What can you tell me about our plans or your understanding of what's transpiring as a result of Operation Epic Fury in regard to those oil revenues that are now being generated in favor of Russia and the lifting of the sanctions, at least for a temporary period of time?
Senator, thanks for the compliment, I think. I'll start with a couple things. What I would tell you is the same military and intelligence professionals who delivered, not just for the administration, but for the American people, a flawless intelligence picture and flawless military operations in Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Absolute Resolve are the same folks involved with Operation Epic Fury. And so I hope that provides you some measure of comfort with regard to how detailed, how thoughtful the approach was to the current operation. And that's why I think that to mischaracterize it as it is being done in the media is a disservice to the folks involved in what is a very specific campaign that is different than the two that I mentioned before. It's why the president came out and said, this isn't over in a matter of hours, this is a 4 to 6 week campaign, and that it would come at some cost, because the goal of the president and the administration is to address a 47-year problem, the most destabilizing force in the Middle East for the last 47 years, one that has frankly been watered, fed, and nurtured by policies of prior administrations that has allowed them to become the threat that they have.
So I say all of that sort of in context to understanding that we have to address that, but at the same time, to your point on what's going on with regard to Russia and Ukraine, and you mentioned the oil issue. Sometimes policymakers have to take steps that, while they may benefit adversaries like Russia or China, do so because they also think it will benefit U.S. citizens, and in this case with respect to keeping the economy on track and keeping oil prices low. So what I can tell you is the intelligence is thoughtfully considered, and I think the policymakers have taken that I'm confident that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, pursue objectives in the Middle East, and provide support with regard to the conflict in Russia and the Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Mr. Director Ratcliffe, you just described the specific campaign that the president is engaged in, the country is engaged in, with respect to Iran. I think that the campaign has been one, in my view, without a specific rationale for the American people. 90 days into President Trump's unauthorized war with Iran, and by which I mean there has been no congressional approval. At least 13 American service members are dead, and many others are injured. President Trump has offered no credible justification for an imminent threat, no clear goals, no strategy or timeline. His message keeps changing, I think, in really damaging ways. President Trump said Iran's nuclear facilities, quote, totally obliterated in June 2025. But when he launched this latest war, he said we need to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat of those totally obliterated nuclear facilities. President Trump has threatened to seize Iranian oil and demanded our allies reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He said that I'm demanding that these countries come in and protect their own territory because it's their territory. It's the
Shouldn't have
place
started
from
the
which
war.
they get their energy. By the way, he wasn't just asking for our allies to protect or to bail them out in the Straits of Hormuz. He was asking China to bail them out in the Straits of Hormuz. And then he said maybe we shouldn't even be here at all because we don't need it. We have a lot of oil. And he said we do not need the help of anyone. President Trump has declared we won the war. We won it in the
He
first
also
hour.
said Gavin
But then he said
was
we're
the president.
not leaving until the job is finished. He said that there is practically nothing left to bomb, but then threatened to bomb Iran again, quote, just for fun. I think words that probably have never come out of a military leader in the history of the United States of America. It shouldn't come out of the mouth of a civilian leader. President Trump said he will end the war when I feel it in my bones. And any time I want to end it, it will end. But, Director, the war is not ending. It is escalating with thousands of U.S. Marines reportedly sailing toward Iran on an unclear mission, a mission that's become less clear over days, not more clear. Our airstrikes wiped out Iran's missiles and supreme leader. Nobody here.
Oh, my.
Will now live under martial law. And by the way, no surprise to our intelligence agencies that that's the case. And the first of a puppet leader who's chosen by the IRGC. No surprise that to anybody on the intelligence committee. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and is holding the global economy hostage. No surprise to anybody who knows anything about U.S. intelligence. Launching drones at our embassies and military bases. No surprise. The president is surprised. Nobody who has looked at our intelligence is surprised. Iran's nuclear program is damaged, to be sure, but it still has a uranium stockpile. We heard today from the DNI at the very beginning of this conversation that the regime is in place and they are going to rebuild their military capabilities, the ones that we are destroying right now. Question I think is raised, Director, about your specific engagement is whether it will become a perpetual war, because what Iran will do is exactly what they have always done, and which the DNI is saying they will do again. In its briefings to the committee, the Intelligence Committee has been clear-eyed about what would happen in the Straits of Hormuz, has been clear-eyed about whether or not our military bases, our embassies, and our personnel in the region would be placed at risk and in harm's way, even though the administration did very little to protect them. I know, Director Ratcliffe, that you warned President Trump that if Israel assassinated the supreme leader, the IRGC would replace him with potentially a harder line puppet. In fact, I think what was clear is that the likelihood was that it would be a hard line puppet. Do you disagree with that characterization of the intelligence?
To that specific question, what we knew was, first of all, I guess I have to address up front, so much of what you related in there, the difference between political rhetoric versus...
Not political rhetoric. I'm quoting the President of the United States.
Political rhetoric versus military...
Director,
the difference between that and military and intelligence execution, but here's the most important thing. You mischaracterized this as saying there aren't clearly defined goals. The defined goals are very clear. Degrade and destroy the missile inventory and drone inventory, delay and degrade the military industrial base and factories that produce that, degrade and destroy the IRGC Navy that can control the Strait. These are all defined goals that were set out specifically. The premise of the question is that...
time back, Mr. Chairman, I can't get a word in edgewise. He won't answer the question, and then he's taking a minute of my time.
You're both big boys. You can handle it yourself.
Okay, well, Director, I agree that you are, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I'm not, my point is not what your characterization of the war is. My point is what the characterization, the Commander, I'm not asking you anymore, Mr. Director. I'm sorry, because I'm out of time because of how you use the time. The complete lack of clarity should matter to everybody. President Trump, most of all, he is the person that got elected on the criticism that we had fought 2 wars in the Middle East that had lasted for 20 years. And now we're hearing the testimony is to get their ballistic missiles, to not even get to the nuclear stuff, we're going to have to be in a perpetual war with Iran. And I don't think that's where the American people are on this. This is a serious threat. This is a serious threat to us and to Israel. The question is how to handle it. And President Trump said, we are not the policemen of the world. He ran on that. And now he's turned us into the world's policeman, into its jury, into its judge, into its executioner. And just because we have the most advanced military in the world,
Senator Time says has
that we
expired.
should be in a perpetual
Senator Bennett,
war
your time
all
has
around
expired.
the world. Thank you, Mr.
Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to maybe follow up a little bit this same line of questioning, but I want to do it in a little bit different manner. I've had the opportunity, like all of the other members on this committee, to see the threats that we discuss regularly in the classified settings. I also, sitting on the Armed Services Committee, have the opportunity to see what our capabilities are and what we have to do in order to respond to those threats. Director Ratcliffe, let me just begin. I think it's been very clear from the beginning that even though there were supposedly diplomatic activities going on, behind the scenes it was very clear, and I just ask if you would disagree or agree with me on this, it was very clear that Iran, while they were talking, they had no intentions of following through diplomatically with eliminating any of their nuclear aspirations, correct?
Senator, that's correct, and in the classified session we can go into detail, but you characterized it right. Diplomatically, they were saying one thing. The intelligence was reflecting quite the contrary.
Okay. Second of all, with regard to the capabilities, earlier in the 12-day war, a lot of their defensive capabilities had been taken out. their air defenses had been taken out. The use of our aircraft in that area was safer because those defensive capabilities, most of them had been significantly reduced, meaning our young men and women who are flying those aircraft were safer. Is it fair to say that they were rebuilding their defensive capabilities as well at that time?
Yes. So I'll just comment on that so much is being made. Any characterization that Operation Midnight Hammer was anything but a wild success is wildly inaccurate. As a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, at the time of that, but in the preceding 4 years, as is well documented and admitted to by the Iranians, they enriched uranium at least 440 kilograms at 60% for use that could be used for weapons grade to deliver a nuclear weapon. As a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, we sit here today with Iran having exactly the same amount of enriched uranium to 60%, meaning they have been unwilling and incapable of enriching uranium to 60% as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer.
Okay, and let me go on because I think this is an important part of this. You also have to have a way of delivering a weapon. It's fair to say that they have short-term and intermediate-range ballistic missile availability today. Were they building additional short-range and mid-range ballistic missiles?
Yes.
Were they continuing to develop them?
Continuing to develop them and at rates that were alarming.
And what about our ability to respond to those? We have very good defensive capabilities, but it takes time for us to build our defensive capabilities. Were they building their offensive capabilities while they were negotiating with us at a faster rate than we could build defensive capabilities?
Yes.
Were they continuing to work at and deliver additional resources to terrorist organizations that were affiliated with them in the region?
Yes.
So in other words, while they were supposedly diplomatically working with us during that entire time, they were continuing with regard to their nuclear intentions. They were building additional missile systems to deliver or conventional weapon systems to threaten their neighbors. Their defensive capabilities were going to be increased, making our young men and women at risk when at some point in the future we would have to basically go in and clean the mess up. I think there was an opportunity here, and I think the president made the right choice when he decided at this time that simply for our advantage and for the young men and women that have to go in and do this, that this was a safer time, if there ever is such a thing as a safer time, at the right time for our nation to respond to this threat. Is that an appropriate way of putting it, sir?
I agree with that.
Thank you. I think the president made the right choice. It is never a good time for a war. But at some point, you've got to look at what your best possibilities are for protecting those young men and women who are in harm's way. Let me move on for just a minute. Director Ratcliffe, let me just ask you this, because there's been a discussion, and we've never been able to talk about this in an unclassified setting, and I recognize it's sensitive, but 60 Minutes, there's been a report about Havana syndrome and about individuals who are within the agency and within state departments that have actually had significant illnesses, some attributed, they believe, to outside sources. I don't think we have been able to, in an unclassified setting, at least acknowledge that we take these issues seriously. Is there anything you can share in this unclassified setting to assure the people of the State Department and your agency that this is not something which is being ignored?
Thanks for the question. I appreciate the opportunity to address that. Yes, we have to be careful about what we can say. We go into further detail in the classified session. But this is something that when I became the director, as you're aware, Senator, there are disparate opinions across the IC about what the cause of these AHIs may or may not be.
Otherwise known as Havana syndrome.
Havana syndrome, yeah, and the question of whether or not they could be the result of a directed energy weapon from a foreign adversary. So when you, having been the DNI, understanding the role of the DNI is to coordinate across the IC when there are disparate opinions among agencies. Director Gabbard and I had a conversation where she agreed that she would undertake a comprehensive review of that issue across the IC to make sure that it is getting the attention that it deserves. And I know that she has undertaken that and will be able to brief you in further detail in the classified session.
Thank you. And one last thought, this is only a comment, but to General Hartman, your time in service has been very, very special. Working with you on the Cyber Security Subcommittee of the Armed Services Committee, I commend you for everything you've done. You are truly a hero, and you have served your country very, very well. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today to all of our witnesses. So for more than a decade, the United States has tried to make a pivot to Asia in its national defense strategy in order to confront significant threats from China. For years, administrations of both parties have identified China as a top threat facing our country and worked to build relationships across Asia and deter Chinese aggression. At the same time, we have bolstered our European allies and asked them to contribute more to their defense to deter Russia. Directors Gabbard and Ratcliffe, would you agree that China and Russia are our primary geopolitical rivals? Director Gabbard.
Yes, they are our primary strategic
Thank you. Director Ratcliffe?
I would agree with that, although I don't think they're equal in terms of the threats that they
Understand.
pose.
Thank you. So that brings us to the war with Iran. So this has created one of the largest ever supply shocks to the global oil supply, which has sent gas prices skyrocketing for Americans. But not everybody is losing. Directors Gabbard and Ratcliffe, is it accurate that Russia has gained billions of dollars in additional oil revenue due to price spikes as a result of the war and loosened sanctions? Director Gabbard.
That is what has been reported. I defer to the Director of Secretary of Treasury and Energy on that front for details.
Director Ratcliffe.
Yeah, I'm not an economist, not going to try and do those calculations. But as I talked about earlier, sometimes there are decisions made that will benefit adversaries. At the same time, policymakers think that it will benefit the American people.
Clear, I think we can all agree that sanctions were loosened, and that means more money into the coffers of Vladimir Putin. Would you agree that if he has more funding, he is likely to put that to his war effort against Ukraine? Director Gabbard.
I would defer to an actual intelligence assessment on what they would believe his intentions are.
Director Ratcliffe?
Yeah, I wouldn't speculate on that.
Wouldn't speculate? Okay. Okay. And is it accurate that China is continuing to receive preferential oil flows from Iran despite the conflict, as Iran allows its own tankers to transit the strait? Director Gabbard? I'm going to go back and forth to these.
There has been some reporting of China, India, and other countries being able to move their tankers through the strait. However, it is unclear the volume or the measure of that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's accurate. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Director Gabbard, you tweeted yesterday that President Trump concluded there was an imminent threat and made a decision to attack Iran after carefully reviewing all the information beforehand. I think the country deserves to know what the information was. I'm going to ask a series of questions and just want a yes or no. We don't need any explanation, just yes or no, starting with, were you asked, I'm not asking if you did brief this, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close
Oh,
the
hold
Strait of
on.
Hormuz?
They said it turned feisty.
I'm not going to comment on what the president did or didn't ask me on any topic.
I'm not asking if you briefed it. I'm just asking if there was a request
I understand.
by the White House. Director Ratcliffe, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz?
the briefings to the president of the White House typically don't come at the request of the White House. So typically when we get intelligence that we want the president to be aware of, the intelligence community.
The analysis for the Straits of Hormuz?
There has been and continues to be analysis with respect to that.
Were you asked to brief on how our adversaries and allies would respond to the war in Iran? I imagine I'll get the same answer. So it's just to point out here, it's challenging to forget about actually what was in the brief for a second. We're having a hard time finding out not only if you briefed the president on something, but even if the White House asked if they could be briefed on something or if analysis was produced. So I just want to point out here, it's about 6 days.
Can I comment on
Yes.
that? I go back to the point. It's the same approach that we took to the prior operations, which, to your credit, Senator, you have praised the intelligence and military communities in Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Absolute Resolve. It's the same approach and the same professionals in terms of how they approached this particular operation.
We're trying to figure out if the president knew what the downside was of the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And I'm having a hard time finding out whether the White House asked or whether there was a brief, whether the president knew. Did he know this was going to happen, or did he just disregard it? And I just want to point out something that was released about 6 days ago. This is a fundraising email from the president of the United States. And in this email here, where there's multiple links to donate money, it says, as a national security briefing member, my private national security briefings. Director Gabbard or Director Radcliffe, do you think the public should be able to, supporters of the president should be able to pay and receive his private national security briefings? I assume these are briefings to the president that is now going to be provided to somebody who...
Regardless of what that I don't know what that document is.
Political theater
but regardless of what
has
it
been
says,
on
it
the
didn't
Republican
happen.
side.
No,
Because there is really no debate with any of my Democratic colleagues that we need to fully fund FEMA, that we need to fully fund the Coast Guard, we need to fully fund CISA, to fund all of those other
Switching
areas. The
over
TSA
for a little
folks
bit
all should be
to
fully
Mark.
funded. But unfortunately, my
Markwayne
Republican colleagues who
Mullin.
control the floor, you are in the majority, you determine which bills go on the floor and which ones are up for a vote. The way we can do that so we don't have a floor vote is we can go and move by unanimous consent and move a bill and say, is there anybody that objects to this bill? And if they don't object, it immediately is passed. That's the procedure. So folks at home watching this, we have bills that will immediately pass and could pass today. We have put on the floor bills to fully fund TSA, and my Republican colleagues have objected. I heard all this support for TSA today, so I hope you tell your colleagues, don't object to the TSA funding bill. Please don't do that. We could pass it today. God, that would be great. But we heard a lot of theater, all this stuff. FEMA, pass it today. Coast Guard, pass it today. CISA, cybersecurity, pass it today. So as the nominee for Homeland Security, I would hope you would tell your colleagues, boy, this is really important. Don't object to the bill that allows us to pay for this. Now, granted, the CBP and ICE
That's
are
taking
not in
money
there
out
because we
of
are around
Trump and
negotiating
pocket.
about making sure that there are guardrails in place so that local or that federal agents have to abide by the same rules as local police. You know, when I go home and I say that, everybody says, really? They don't have to do that now? I'm like, no. But Republicans are going to hold TSA hostage. They're going to hold Coast Guard hostage. They're going to hold FEMA, CISA. They're going to hold it all hostage because they don't want to give any ground on making sure we just have common sense guidelines. We have a solution for that. Pass the bills for all of these other agencies. Pass them. They can happen today. We've tried for the last 2 weeks, and my Republican colleagues object. Don't object anymore. And then let's focus on trying to come together And I appreciate your comments about how we come together. Let's come
Hey,
together
Monty.
and figure out how we put common sense guidelines in place for federal agents that are operating in our communities. You've expressed an interest in doing that today, and I take you at your word for that. So let's do that. But let's not make TSA a hostage in this whole thing. Let's pass the bills. We can do it. So I heard it. I heard HSI funding from one of my colleagues here. I want to be clear, HSI is funded because both CBP and ICE are fully funded because of the big bill that passed last year. So that funding isn't even in jeopardy. What's in jeopardy, we can fix today. All the things that are not being funded, we can fund today. And every single Democrat is for it. There's only one Republican. It only takes one Republican to object, and apparently that keeps happening. I talked to that one Republican and say, stop objecting to this. If you truly all believe in that, stop objecting to it. HSI is getting money now because of the big bill. But what's the problem with HSI? And I agree with my colleague with child exploitation. I'm going to be at the top of the list when it comes to making sure we're doing as much as we can to stop that. But unfortunately, this administration has actually transferred all those HSI people to immigration enforcement. They're not even doing what they were supposed to be doing. So I would hope if you are confirmed, you will bring those folks back to their role that my colleague says is so important, which I agree with. But why did the administration send them off to immigration work then? Apparently, the administration doesn't think it's as important as my colleague. And I just want to wrap up here. Questions that we had related to your bio. And the biography is important. And it's important that we fully understand how you're presenting yourself. And if there are any ambiguities, we want to work that out. On March 11th, I sent you a letter asking for information about any activity related to any special assignment, which you talked about here today, that you have been involved in. There was no exception for official travel.
Please
or any
hit
of
the
that.
like
It was-
button.
You just ask any of these special assignments that you
Like,
talked
share,
about. You
subscribe.
responded to the committee in that letter by saying my voluntary work included special assignments outside of DOD, was that I offered support and mentorship from a Christian perspective to both Afghans that supported our efforts and other personnel that served in war zones. You stated your special assignments occurred intermittently between 2006 and 11. My letter did not exclude official travel, and it also gave you explicit instructions in that letter for providing classified information, how we could do that, and do it in a way that protects that classified information.
This is where I talk about what I liked in my first box. If I hadn't already been using them since the beginning of the year.
Activities from 2015 to 16. Quite frankly, as we've had these conversations, you've not been forthcoming with me or this committee. The story always seems to evolve, to kind of change. And as you know, candor, honesty, transparency are absolutely critical, particularly at this time to try to build trust as the Secretary of Homeland Security. So we have to clear this up. We feel pretty strongly. We have to understand exactly what this is, especially with all your public comments that have raised a lot of questions. We've checked. The SCIF is available. We're going to go in the, we would love to have you come to the SCIF and tell us exactly what you're talking about. I think that'll put my colleagues' mind at peace. Would you be willing to go to the SCIF this afternoon and tell us the classified activities you're talking about?
Sir, I think this committee made it very clear with the paperwork they gave me that I do not have to disclose my personal or not my my official travel. That was part of the documents. And it went over 2 or 3 times. I complied with exactly what the committee said. And there is no statement for, or no area for mission work and mentorship. That was a volunteer basis that I did on my own time. And it was very specific over and over again that you don't have to claim official travel.
We want to know what the supposed classified work was. We have real questions about it. I asked the FBI yesterday, I said, and if someone had appeared in any classified document, any document, would that be in this report? And they said, yes. I said, well, I don't see anything for Senator Mullin. Why is that? They said, nothing showed up. We queried the Department of State, the Department of Defense, other intel folks. So you're in no classified document that the federal government has, according to the FBI, and yet you're telling me you did all this classified work. I don't understand how that recognizes.
Sir, I didn't say all. I was very clear with what I said. I get what you're trying to get to here, and that's fine. But I complied with everything the document said, and it was official travel, and it was a classified trip.
Well, let me just chime in on this. I've agreed this is the fastest hearing anyone's ever had. This will be the fastest vote anyone's ever had. And that's despite my qualms and problems with your nomination. And I'm willing to do that. But when the FBI came to my office, I asked them if you had done any kind of work for the CIA, the DOD, or any other.
I haven't.
Let me finish. Any of these kind of agencies or any kind of classified work. And they said the way it works is you would have a separate folder if you'd been involved in classified missions somewhere, and we would get to see the folder, and then we wouldn't talk about it. We would look at it privately, and we would know what you're referring to. So it's confusing to us because there may have been some papers that said your official trips were excluded. I don't know which ones were and weren't, but you've now mentioned today that you have activities you've done. And so I think it would be easy, and I'm still willing to have the vote tomorrow, but I can cancel the vote tomorrow. I'm still willing to have the vote, get this done, and get it over with. But I think that
you
just to
done
make
got caught
clear,
lying.
and it doesn't sound like it's a secret you're too concerned about divulging, if you would to spend an hour and go to the SCIF or 30 minutes and just tell both the ranking member and the other, and it would be private and it won't be revealed, I think it would get this over with and we wouldn't have a complaint about going ahead with the vote tomorrow.
I have no issue with that if you guys get cleared on it, because the way my understanding was is there was only 4 people right in it, and it was a special program inside the House. Just like I wasn't on Intel at the time, I'm not saying I was, but I have no issue with that at all. I would welcome being brought up. It's very unique, and it was
that would be on you. We're not going to try to figure out who the 4 people are and whether we can have approval to it. And
I don't
if you're doing something that important, really it probably ought to be revealed and discussed.
Senator, or Chairman, it's not on me to. I don't have the authority to do that. But this is why I said I was very clear. Sorry that I never talked specific dates or locations on this, and so I have zero issue with talking about it. But I don't have clearance to talk about this afternoon. I don't.
This is a legislative program. This is a program
I come in hitting the like button.
Assigned you to.
Yes.
Good morning, Auntie P and family.
Who assigned it to you?
Sir, that's not for me to talk
make
to you
sure
about on this.
it
I'm sorry,
says live
this isn't
chat.
classified. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be ugly. You know how classified situations work.
Which agency classified it?
It wasn't an agency. It was done here, well, in the House on the time.
The House classified it.
I'm assuming. I wasn't on Intel.
We're just not really aware of how the House classifies things.
I have no idea. I know every time we spoke about this, we had to go to the SCIF and visit about it. But I know there was a paper that I had to sign before it even started, and I may be wrong. There may be more than 4, but I know it was only me and 3 other people that ever discussed it.
So secret that we can't know about it. I would think that there'd be some paperwork in the SCIF that they should show us saying this is so top secret and this was made classified.
I have no problem. You're welcome to go to the House. This started in 2015. It ended in little late in 2016. I have nothing to hide on this. This is too easy. I would really enjoy sitting there and have a conversation with you because I don't want you to have a question my character on this. So that's very simple for me, but I can't make that authorization. You guys know that.
Well, it's a little difficult for us to go ask about a program that has no name, and we have nobody that we know to talk to about it. So I don't know how we would begin doing this without cooperation. But
I don't know why.
I'm to hold the vote tomorrow, but you brought this up. That you were on a super
resubmit
secret
the
mission.
message.
No, I did not say super secret, sir. I said it was classified.
That only 4
people know?
Well, I only know if there was 4 people. There was maybe more people that understood it, but I know there was only 3 people plus me that was ever in the meeting. And so as far as I'm concerned, only 4 people was read in on this.
You were on the Intel committee?
No, not at the time. No, sir. I was on the Intel committee after that.
What committee were you on at the time?
He done got busted line.
You got to think about 10 years ago. Energy and Commerce.
So it was an Energy and Commerce top secret effort.
Senator, I know what I'm getting upset about a little bit here is
Get over.
your tone that
I
you're
have
saying
sent
it in a
4
condescending
messages
way.
since
I
I
did what I was
sent
asked.
good
I'm trying
morning.
to find
Well,
out who
I
we would talk
see
to.
after good
Sir,
morning.
I told you exactly what happened here.
After good
I was not
morning.
required to disclose this on any official travel. Your
I see,
documents were
hey,
very, very
Janet.
clear on that.
I came
So I
in
don't know
hitting the
what else
like
you want me
button.
to say. You said you can go
For
find
some
out,
reason,
go
I
find out.
can't
And
see
then
my
when
messages
when you
that I
guys say it's
sent
good for me to
you.
talk to you, I'll be happy to talk to you
So
about
that
it.
means change
I
at the
just,
top
I can't talk specifics. If you
where
want
it
to talk
says
about
live
general
or
ideas, let's go down and talk in the skiff. I'm okay with that. But I can't get
make sure
into
it says
necessarily
live
specifics
chat
or who
at the
made the
top.
decision to do it. But I can talk in general, and I'll be very,
Hold
very
on.
glad to do that with you. And even Senator Langford, I know is.
Y'all hit the like button, please. I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, so Monty, at the top, it's going to either say live chat or, let me see what it says. Hold on. Because it's an arrow down. And it says live chat or top chat. Make sure it says live chat. And then you should be able to see your comments at the very top. Where it has that crown. It's opposite of where it says top fans. Oh, yours may be different. But at the top, you have to make sure it says live chat.
On Intel, he can come down with us and visit with us about it. I'm no issues with that at all. Perfectly clear and okay with it. But it's not for me to release this. So if you guys want to do that, we can leave here, go down there and talk about it.
Did this mission involve exchange of fire?
It wasn't a mission. It was an official travel with specific deals or for
Thank you
specific
for the lucky
fact
clover.
finding, just like any official travel is, that they wanted clarification on.
Yep.
And so
You see it now?
Like I said, be
You
happy
said,
to talk to
"Let's
you about
see."
it if you guys want to.
And it was in a conflict zone?
Sir, once again, I'm not talking about specific details or dates because we've revealed that this was a classified situation. Now I'm not going to talk about because anything I've talked about in the past wasn't referencing any of this, but I'm definitely not going to get into it now. It's talking about specific dates.
Because you got busted
We would
lying.
have no way of exploring this unless you were willing to cooperate on
I don't know, Chairman, I don't know what else you said, what else you want me to do. I said I will go down there and talk about this with you in a skip, but I can't give the specific, all the specific
There's no
details.
reason to think that somehow we're not qualified to look at classified information. And so the thing is we would.
There is a lot of programs out there, Chairman, that you know is based on a need to know.
Right.
And maybe you can talk to Senator Langford about this too. Senator Langford, would you like to talk about?
I'm glad to jump in. This feels, as my mom used to say, a mountain out of a molehill, where he is offered over and over and over again to say, let's get into a classified setting. I just left the worldwide threats hearing where I had to run over to be able to run back there.
Did you go out and come back in?
There were several questions that I asked there that they
reboot?
gave me a partial answer and
restart
said,
your
I'll give you
phone?
the rest of this answer in the skip.
It's on your
And everybody
end.
goes,
It's
"Oh,
not
okay,
our
I get
end because
that."
I can see it. You put no
Because there
ma'am.
are some
I see
things
what
that
you're
are
writing.
sources, methods, or
If you
actions
can't see
that
it, it's
we're
on
all
your end.
keenly aware of on this. And I don't know what else he could say at this point other than let's get in the skiff and let's actually
Why don't
talk
we
about
start with
this.
that initial meeting and see how that goes?
Yeah, we'll have an initial meeting.
Yeah.
That's what we asked
Oh,
for.
he mad?
Senator.
Yeah.
He got a bad attitude, but Trump gonna love him.
No, I did say that. I said I can't give you all the details to it because it's not for me to release it, but I can talk to you
Okay.
in general about it, but not in this setting.
Yeah.
Come
and
back
let's
now,
get
you
the
hear?
information out and be able to talk it through and be able to find out what this is.
Trump gonna love him
All
because he got a
is
bad
classified settings.
attitude.
Let's try to get it done this afternoon so we can.
I'm available
proceed
right
with
after
that.
this, so if
All right.
we're, Senator, or Chairman, if you want to, we can go leave from here and go straight there.
Yeah, and let's try to get the hearing finished. So I really want to, let's try no more speeches back and forth on all the ICE stuff if we can. If you kind of just conclude that one, can I come back to you in a minute?
Sure.
All right. Senator Hassel, let's try to get off of funding ICE and stuff. Let's just try to stick to the nomination for now.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I do have to take a moment because during my first round of questions, I discussed the current impasse we find ourselves in over ICE reforms and DHS funding, and I didn't speak clearly, so I just do need to clarify my comments now. ICE already has significant funding right now for the president's budget bill, from the president's budget bill last summer, which provided the agency with several times more money than its annual budget and gave ICE broad discretion about how to use that money. That means that the partial shutdown that we have right now has nothing to do with whether ICE has the usual levels of funding it needs to operate, since the agency already has many times its annual budget. It's about, instead, the need for policy reforms to help ensure that ICE operates using the same kind of standards that state and local law enforcement in New Hampshire and around the country uphold every single day. Now, Senator Fetterman was right earlier when he pointed out that this shutdown is impacting other parts of DHS that handle cybersecurity and transportation security and other critical functions. We need to resolve it right now, and as Senator Peters just described, we have been pushing to do that in the ways that the minority can. We need to reach agreement on ICE policy reforms or by funding the rest of the department while we continue to negotiate on those reforms, something I strongly support, but unfortunately Republicans have blocked. The reforms to ICE are critical. DHS is supposed to be prioritizing the removal of dangerous and violent criminals. Instead, we've seen DHS agents assault and even kill American citizens while wearing masks, seeming without accountability. So now this is the question. Senator, if a masked ICE or other DHS agent kills an American citizen, should local law enforcement be allowed to investigate and hold that agent accountable?
Unfortunately, local law enforcement isn't supposed to be investigating federal. That's what DOJ and FBI is for. Now, we will communicate with local law enforcement, but that's not their job. FBI, it's just the same thing if in most municipalities, if there's a fatality shooting, there's another agency that oversees them. And in this case, it'd be the FBI who is set up inside the DOJ to investigate those.
So you've answered no, and your answer would make ICE unaccountable, and that endangers not just the rule of law, but also the security of all Americans. I wanted to get to one other question. During the past year, DHS leadership cut CISA's expert workforce by nearly a third. Meanwhile, adversaries and criminal syndicates are accelerating their cyber attacks against the United States. How do you plan to restore DHS's cybersecurity force and better secure our critical infrastructure from cyber attacks?
Man, we've got to recruit the right people, but the best and brightest individuals in those areas. I know the University of Tulsa has a great program. But recruiting individuals that want to be there, that want to deliver the mission is vitally important, and so we will work to make sure that happens.
So you agree we need to add people back into CISA and pursue this critical function, and they need to be nonpartisan experts with experience and commitment to the safety and security of our country, wherever that leads them.
No one in the homeland should be looking at this from a bipartisan perspective. Now, if you want me to talk about staffing numbers, I don't know what the mission requires, but we will be staffed adequately if we can find the right people to staff and to make sure that we're mission capable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Out of respect for your desire to move things along, I will submit for the record a question on non-intrusive imaging at the border. It's supposed to be ready to do for every vehicle entering the United States, especially to detect fentanyl. And I'd like your answer on that and a couple of other questions as well, but I'll submit those for the record. Thank you.
Without objection. Senator Langford.
Thank you. We talked before about just trying to get information on time and such. In the transition that happened between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, data fell behind.
He's got a new merge order in, and I want to show you guys how the designs came out.
It was one of my complaints that I had with the office that was sometimes 2 or 3 weeks late on releasing normal data information, just how many encounters were happening at the border, how many arrests, some of those things on it. Last year, it wasn't weeks late, it was months and months and months late on getting data out.
That when we
DHS has a really good story to tell.
It's not
There's a
seen.
lot
Now,
of good
there
things
is a
that are
difference
happening
between
there,
making
but my
actual
concern
requests
is
because you're wanting to get to a solution versus harassment.
Badgering people.
Yes, there is a tremendous amount that happens. Both sides play the game. And I'm just not going to play that game. I'll work with any senator, I'll work with any committee to make sure that we are getting the information you need to do your job. But just for harassment purposes, please, I ask you, if you want me to do my job and do it right and be transparent with you, don't play games with me either. Because if you have real concerns, like I said, everybody on this committee and really for our colleagues for that matter, have my personal cell phone. That number, I have no intentions of changing it unless somebody leaks it.
Yeah, hopefully that wouldn't occur on it. One other quick question on this. Ali Mayorkas, when he sat at that desk before, he and I had a lot of conversations about what they called, was labeled the special interest aliens. These
Special
are folks
interest
that come from
aliens.
known
Here we
areas
go.
of terrorism, but we didn't have any information on them specifically, and so the Biden administration just let them in. They may say, well, we know somebody in your family as acts of terrorism, but it's not you. So they just labeled them special interest aliens and released them into the country. That we know of about 70,000 of those individuals.
Oh, you're talking about
Trump administration
immigrants.
in the last year and a couple of months has
They
picked
kill
up
me calling people
50,000 of
aliens.
those.
When they
That's
really
part of
have
this enforcement that's out
aliens
there to be able to identify folks
that they've been
I've
playing with.
bringing the bell on over and over and over again, saying, why are we letting people in that we literally say, yeah, they could be a terrorist, they could not be a terrorist, we don't know. Somebody in their family is, but we don't know them if they are on it. So they were just released into the country.
Area 51.
And given that label,
Yeah,
in fact, I
they
was
down there
told,
playing
we'll
with
keep
aliens,
watching
but
them.
you want to
when I
call
went to the FBI
immigrants
and asked them directly, they
aliens.
were like, there's no way we can track 70.
So majority of y'all are
There's been
aliens.
a lot of good work to be able to try to identify where those people went, who they're associating with here in the United States on it, and then removing them from the United States. There's still about 20,000 left. Love to be able to get your promise to say, we're not going to quit. We're going to continue to be able to find folks that were just allowed to come to the country that may be a terrorist and may not be a terrorist, we don't know, but to be able to go identify those folks and make sure that American people are protected.
Well,
Absolutely.
it seemed like
Thank
the
you.
people in the
We're
cabinet
almost
are
done. We have two
terrorists.
people left who haven't responded this round. We've had a lot of debate over ICE funding. I hope we can ask just some specific questions to the nominee. I can't control what you ask, but that's my hope. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Senator Mullin, just months before the war with Iran began, the Trump administration negotiated a back-channel agreement, a deal with the Islamic Republic to deport Iranian nationals, including asylum seekers, dissidents. There have been public reports about it. CNN on January 26, 2026. New York Times reported it in a couple of articles in September and December, that flights in around that time deported tens of those kinds of Iranian nationals back to Iran as part of this secret agreement. I want to tell you about one husband and wife, Christian converts from Islam, who were sentenced in absentia to 9 and 11-year sentences by the Islamic Republic. They fled to the United States seeking asylum, but they were detained by ICE on arrival. The wife was deported. She managed to take refuge in Turkey. The husband, I'll call him Mr. H, is still here, but he's facing deportation, despite showing scars from the beating he received by a government gang. I have both of their declarations. I'd like them to be entered in the record. There are Iranian American organizations like the Iranian American Legal Defense Fund that have further information. I have no doubt that you share my outrage about the treatment of this couple and other Iranian nationals who were deported possibly to torture and death in Iran. Will you agree with me and commit that we should stop deporting such people?
Ma'am, sir, I don't know the specifics behind this. I think before I can talk about in hypotheticals, I would need to know what the reasons behind it, but I don't want to deport anybody that's here illegally, or here legally, I mean. And most definitely not individuals that have done everything possible to be a contributor to society. But in these specific cases, I don't know. I'm not familiar with them. I don't know if there's something else in the background that would cause the administration
I'm
to do
talking
it.
in general about tens of people, as many as 55 on one flight, 15 or so on another, not just this couple, but in principle, we should not be sending Iranian dissidents and asylum seekers back to Iran, wouldn't you agree?
Sir, we do know that our enemies want to infiltrate us and use our rules
Hey, be
and
rich.
our generosity against us. And so I don't know the specifics of these. I don't know their background. I don't know what the reasons was, but I will be happy to look into it.
Let me ask you about another topic. I'm glad that you've committed that there will not be the kind of review that Secretary Noem imposed on contracts above a certain amount uniformly by your office. But I'd like your commitment that you will help us investigate another abuse of authority. Corey Lewandowski apparently was in charge of approving all contracts. One of them was a $220 million contract that was related directly to Kristi Noem being fired. They bypassed procurement rules to award that contract to a shell company that was created days before to benefit a Republican consulting firm with close ties to Secretary Noem and Mr. Lewandowski. Will you commit to cooperating with our investigation, the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation, making documents and personnel available to congressional and other investigations into those contracts awarded by Secretary Noem and Mr. Lewandowski?
Senator, I've heard these same reports. I know the IG, Joseph, I don't know him personally. That's why I say Joseph. Some people call him Joe. Is open investigations. We will cooperate with him.
And provide all the documents and records that are necessary for this committee to do its work. That's what I'm asking.
I'll do everything that's required of me by law, but the IG will be doing the investigation, and we'll let the IG, decide what documents he's going to share, and maybe you can bring that up with him.
Well, in fact, Secretary Noem obstructed the investigations underway by the IG. In fact, in at least 10, they were the subject of a letter from the IG. Are you committing to immediately begin restoring the department's working relationship with the IG?
If confirmed, absolutely. I will do everything required of me by law and the policies that you guys give me. There won't be any gray area with me. We want to have a good relationship with the IG. He's got a job to do, and every other agency that's underneath DHS.
And you'll cooperate with the committee in providing those.
Sir, I've everything that is required of me to report, and anything that you want the IG to do, that's between you and the IG.
Senator Mullins, I don't think I need to tell you that the American people have been appalled and angered by what they've seen in the excessive use of force. We've had hearings before the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation that have shown Aliyah Rahman, a woman suffering from traumatic brain injury, yanked from her car in Minneapolis, dragged by her arms, leading both of her shoulders to be torn. Javier Ramirez, a father of 4 from California, detained for 4 days and refused medical treatment for his diabetes. We documented these abuses in a report that we issued and in hearings that we conducted. One of them was Marimar Martinez, who was on her way to donate clothing at a local church when she came across agents in an unmarked car. Agents sideswiped her car. 3 masked agents in camouflage stormed out, and one of them pulled out his gun and fired at her moving vehicle, hitting her 5 times. And the agent then bragged about it.
Yep. Thought he did something big.
He said,
that was his big one.
I won't detail it. I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys. Shouldn't we be disgusted by an agent that fires at a U.S. citizen, no criminal record? She was charged.
Senator Bloom,
the
charge
me that agent not be carrying a firearm.
I'm not familiar with the investigation, sir. Once the investigation is completed, as secretary, I'm sure I'll be.
Who brought her up on charges?
Time's expired. I know these are important issues, but we just have to move on.
Oh,
We're going to finish
wow.
up with Senator Kim, then we're going to make a statement that hopefully can be agreeable for a meeting later. Senator Kim.
I'll be concise here, Chairman. Senator, there's just a couple last things here. A couple weeks ago, we had a hearing here, and I was engaged with the head of USCIS, and I raised an issue that happened in San Diego of spouses of military members and veterans. They were going in to get interviewed for a green card and were arrested upon their arrival. I just wanted to get your reaction to that. Like, is that the kind of behavior you think is acceptable?
Excuse me, repeat.
I canceled all my food delivery subscriptions and upgraded to cooking.
Wow.
And it's totally transformed the way I eat because every meal is crafted by a worker.
Spouses were going and for the purposes of a green card interview, but were at that point detained and arrested on arrival.
I've heard of, I haven't heard about this. I've heard of different reports, Senator, and if people are going through the process and trying to obtain it legally, because we do have naturalization ceremonies Monday through Friday in this country, everywhere. We're going to continue working with those individuals. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know.
They've been deported.
Details, but it's something that we can talk through. But just in general here, I guess what I'm just trying to get a sense from you is what you think is appropriate in terms of ICE agents being able to operate. For instance, do you think it is okay for them to operate and arrest people at hospitals?
Sir, I will always support my law enforcement doing their job. I don't know the circumstances. If it's a felony warrant that the person's at a hospital, then they'll go pick up the felony warrant, just like local law enforcement does the same thing.
Because they're illegal.
And so in general, I think you need to be more specific on what you're talking about. But if you're talking about just doing everyday law enforcement, I think there's a better approach.
Senator, I just want to raise, I just hear a lot of this from my own community about concerns of these types of efforts out, in and around hospitals, schools, churches. These are things that I hope we can engage on. I know you talked about it with one of my colleagues about polling sites, but these are important discussions, and we don't have clarity on what we are expected to see, and it's causing just an enormous amount of concern and challenge within our communities.
Well, Senator, I don't understand what the concern about enforcing immigration at polling places is anyways, because honestly, if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be voting anyway. So technically, there shouldn't be any illegals at the polling spot. And so, as I said before, if we're at a polling area, it's because of a specific threat, not for immigration.
Yeah, look, what I will just convey here is it's not just about people who are undocumented. I'm hearing from American citizens that are now feeling like they need to carry their passports around for fear of being stopped on the street. There is a chilling effect that is happening that is wider. I had to give my father-in-law specific instructions in case he was stopped upon re-entry back into the United States. There is real concern out there, and I just wanted to express that to you. Just a couple last quick things here. At the detention facility in New Jersey, a different one called Delaney Hall, I was there right after a gentleman was died there. And there was really no documentation, really minimal explanation of his cause of death. There was 32 deaths at detention facilities under ICE control last year. Yet the oversight offices at DHS to do this, offices like the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, the Office of Immigration Detention Oversights, they've been gutted. And I just wanted to ask, do you commit to being able to ensure that there is the proper oversight there internally within DHS, working alongside us in Congress to ensure that people are being kept at the dignified levels that they should according to a law?
Each facility falls underneath different standards of operation that are in statutes. We will operate within those statutes. Everybody deserves to be treated with a dignified hand, and we will follow those procedures that are set for those facilities.
Well, I hope to work with you on that if you're confirmed, because we need to make sure we have that oversight, as we have not been able to see it. And in fact, some of our efforts have been impeded because we have not been able to have visitation at some of these sites, and I hope that that's something you will support us to be able to have. One last thing I just wanted to raise. With FEMA, there was a number of employees that sent an open letter titled the Katrina Declaration. This is something that warned about some of the reversals that are being made when it comes to disaster response and recovery. Your predecessor, Secretary Noem, she suspended a number of these FEMA employees. I just wanted to ask, can you commit that if confirmed, you will adhere to whistleblower laws and ensure that these whistleblowers do not face retaliation for their protected disclosure?
So there's already laws in place to protect whistleblowers, and I've said multiple times, I'll work within the law and the requirements of me as secretary.
And I hope that means that you will ensure that these whistleblowers do not face unlawful retaliation for what they have done.
It's against the law, as you said, unlawful, sir. I said I'm going to work within the law, and that's unlawful.
Okay.
Well, you got an unlawful commander-in-chief.
Scheduled a vote tomorrow. I'm committed to
You know,
that.
are you gonna
There are
stand
several
on big
members of both sides of
naive?
the aisle that would like a briefing in the SCIF. They have it from 1 to 2. If you're willing to do that, several members would like just to walk over and do it. And I think that makes it much more likely that we have a vote tomorrow.
Sir, I would prefer to have the ranking member, yourself, James, and if you want to bring another Democrat member that's on.
It's all or
that's
none.
on.
It's all the members need to be able to hear it directly. The problem is too many things are siloed, and it just looks like resistance that you don't want everything to come out. It'd be much more forthcoming if you let any member of the committee and classified staff into it. I think we can get this done.
Okay, that's fine, as long as it's in a classified setting.
As long as what? Yeah, that's fine. The
That's
people
fine.
classified security on our staff and staff. TSCI.
Our hippie gypsies, shouldn't our Congress
all right,
make
thanks everybody for
laws
coming today. The
that
nominee
hold
has filed
criminals?
responses to biographical and financial
Yeah,
questionnaires,
I mean,
answered pre-hearing questions
they are
submitted by the committee,
trying to,
and had their
yeah,
financial statements reviewed by the Office of
it's
Government
crazy.
Ethics. Without objection, this information will be made part of
But
the hearing record, with the exception of the nominee's financial data.
Congress, and then it has levels to
This
it.
hearing and the markup tomorrow. The
When
hearing
they
will remain
appeal it,
open until 4 p.m. today, March 18th.
Trump
This
stay
hearing
in
is
court appealing stuff. Or what did they just do? How long?
More forthcoming. If you let any member of the committee and classified staff into it, I think we can get this done.
Okay, that's fine, as long as it's in a classified setting.
As long as what? Yeah, that's fine. The
That's
people
fine.
classified security on our staff and staff. TSCI.
TSSCI, yes.
All right. All right, thanks everybody for coming today. The nominee has filed responses to biographical and financial questionnaires, answered pre-hearing questions submitted by the committee, and had their financial statements reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics. Without objection, this information will be made part of the hearing record, with the exception of the nominee's financial data, which are on file with the committee. Due to the quick turnaround between this hearing and the markup tomorrow, the hearing will remain open until 4 p.m. today, March 18th. This hearing is adjourned.
Okay, let me get back to the other one. Let me see if it's still going. Ooh-wee.
Consider the nomination of Markwayne Mullin to be Secretary of Department of Homeland Security will come to order.
Okay, hold on. Y'all, please hit the like button. Double tap the face of your screen. Let me see if the other ones. Let me see about Bondi.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Kentucky Congressman James Comer. Good morning to you, Mr. Chairman. So a spokesperson for the Department of Justice calls the subpoena, quote, unnecessary, claiming lawmakers can review unredacted files, that the Attorney General has remained available to members of Congress. So how will this deposition work? Will it be in public? Will it be similar to the Clintons, a closed-door deposition? What are we expecting how this is going to play out?
Well, every deposition is the same. We meet, as you say, behind closed doors, but there's a transcribed reporter that transcribes everything, as well as we video and audio. So we make those depositions public within hours after the deposition. So for all practical purposes, our depositions are public. Now, the genesis of the deposition is the committee voted to subpoena Attorney General Bondi. All the Democrats, they're always making motions, and throughout history on the Oversight Committee, the minority party makes motions to subpoena people, but the majority never joins in until this year. That I've got about 4 or 5 Republicans that vote with the Democrats on everything they do. It doesn't matter what. And but you know, at the end of the day, there was a level of frustration that was being felt by both parties about, you know, questions about the Epstein investigation.
Yeah,
Attorney General Bondi has said
Gypsy,
on
but she was taking
TV
money
numerous
from
times there's
APEC.
an ongoing Department of Justice investigation. Well, we need to know what
She
they're
lost because
investigating
she
to
was
make sure
taking
we're
money from
not,
APEC.
you know, offering duplicative
And when you take money from
types of
APEC, you do
investigative
not
routes.
fully
You know, we need
have
to make
our
sure
best
that
interests at heart.
you know, are
Once I
there more
saw that,
documents to be
even with
released, and if so,
Hakeem,
when are they going to be released? If there are no more documents that are going to be released, we have questions about specific documents as to why they're not being released. So I encourage the Attorney General to come in before the
put a stain
deposition
on our
and give us
brain.
an update, because it's probably going to take a couple of months to bring the Attorney
And I like her,
General in for a formal
but she
deposition
takes
that,
money from
again, wasn't
APEC. So she
served by
takes
me. It was
money
served
from
by a
Israel.
majority of the committee. All the Democrats and
She's
5
been
Republicans voted
compromised.
to subpoena her. So
Now,
I had to issue that
now
subpoena. But
the
I want to
Democrats
work with the Attorney General. I do
don't
think she needs to
are
be more
not wanting to
transparent
take
with
money
the
from
committee about,
APEC.
you know,
It should have
what's
never.
the status of the remaining
Yeah,
documents.
that's what messed her up.
With question
She
to
lost.
redactions, we have
She
some
compromised
questions on some
herself when she
redactions that I
started
think
taking money from
can
APEC.
be
Let me stop
answered
this so
today.
you
I
can
just
hear
think
me.
there's been a breakdown of communication.
Yeah, I mean, because we the people are gonna wanna call holler foul play, which I'm not saying it wasn't, but the people didn't vote for her because she was compromised by taking money from APEC. Because it's like here I am saying, you know, when you vote, I don't care what they say they are about. If they have, check to see if they have taken money from APEC, and if they have, don't vote. Now, I didn't know that she had been taking money from APEC. So the rules should still apply, right? If she take whoever, black, white, Republican, Democrat, because we'll complain about why something didn't pass, or why did Congress allow something to be taken away from the citizens of the U.S., but we voted them in, and they were compromised. So before us, they'll be saying, "Oh no, no, no," and da 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 da, and this, and bam, 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 bam. And then when it comes time to pass something, they don't vote in our favor. Why? Because they've been lobbied by APEC. So they're front in our face for vote in Israel's favor. That's why she lost. We got to keep it real. We got to call a spade, and we can't make excuses for somebody that we like, because it's still about our best interest. And when they get thousands of dollars, sometimes millions, yeah, no, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do. They're going to be compromised, and that's why she lost. And when she was asked by a darker shade of brown in the 50 Shades of Brown, she started rambling about, well, let me say this, you know, Israel have been da-da-da-da for years, and it's not going to stop. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. She'd have been better off saying, listen, I have accepted money from them before and did not fully understand the totality of it. I can guarantee you that I will not take a contribution from them again in the future. That's not how she went about it. She started making excuses and justifying why she took it. It's always been like that, and it's not going to stop now. Yeah, no, you've been compromised to some degree, you know. And hopefully in the future, she may come back and learn from her mistakes. But right now, she lost that because somebody published that she is a recipient of APEC.
by a majority of the committee. All the Democrats and 5 Republicans voted to subpoena her. So I had to issue that subpoena. But I want to work with the Attorney General. I do think she needs to be more transparent with the committee about, you know, what's the status of the remaining documents.
Maybe
and,
so.
And with question
Working with Jack
redactions, we have
Smith,
some questions
would
on
be
some
good for
redactions
her.
that I think can be answered today. I just think there's been a breakdown of communication between the committee, between the media, and between the Department of Justice.
So,
Yep.
Go ahead.
And it came out right before the election.
sometimes when things are, you know, broadcasted to the public, it can get very performative. Do you think that you're going to learn more because it's closed doors? So people aren't trying to just have their 5-second soundbite. They're actually going to be asking real questions, and hopefully,
Yeah, I
Bondi
didn't
will be
tap
giving
into
real
it.
answers.
I don't even know if I mentioned it, but I definitely
Yeah,
saw
look,
it. And I
if we have
definitely
a
saw her
public,
interview and was very
committee
disappointed.
hearing with Pam Bondi, there are going to be a lot of Democrats that are going to really show out, and you're going to start
Oh,
seeing
you wishful
screaming and yelling,
thinking.
just like when Pam Bondi went in front of the Senate.
I need for
So
y'all to hit
we're
the
gonna
like
be
button.
behind
I'm
closed
gonna
doors.
shut
I
it
found,
down.
believe it or not, that over the last 3 years, when there are no TV cameras in the room, my committee acts a whole lot more civil, and it's more productive and more substantive. So hopefully this will be a substantive, mature. We're going to meet behind closed doors. I found, believe it or not, that over the last 3 years, when there are no TV cameras in the room, my
You're a
committee
lie.
acts.
You don't want them in there when they are Republic. Well, I guess I can't say it like that. You want it behind closed doors when something may come out that will be detrimental to Trump. Let me say it like that.
A whole lot more civil, and it's more productive and more substantive. So hopefully this will be a substantive, mature conversation. Today is not the deposition. Today is a briefing, and I think that, you know, if we had had a briefing by Attorney General Bondi a few months ago or a few weeks ago, I don't think the committee would have voted to subpoena her for a deposition. So hopefully this briefing will be helpful. The Democrats are going to be in there. The Republicans are going to be in there. You know, it's not a partisan issue. The American people want to know what happened with Epstein. They want to know how the government failed the victims. They want to know why no one's been prosecuted. These are simple questions that I think a majority of Americans have. And hopefully today we'll get some answers and be able to continue to move forward with our investigation and hopefully wrap it up in a matter of months.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. It's been
We'll
many
see.
months already.
Yeah. Chairman Comer, thanks for coming on. We appreciate
Good
it.
to see you, sir.
Okay, so let's see what else. Hold on. I'm trying to see. Hi, Rista. Hey, Mrs. Tom.
Okay, I just
This
have
is
to
the
share this.
confrontation
Just got
that
in the
went
mail
on
3 months
with
food supply from my
Markwayne. He's
Patriot
very
Supply.
aggressive. That's why
The
Trump
man
likes him.
preparing to replace Kristi Noem as the head of Homeland Security is testifying before the Senate. There were some fiery moments that happened just a short time ago. Scripps News senior congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed live on Capitol Hill. And Nate, there was quite a contentious moment. I mean, right out of the gate between Senator Rand Paul and Markwayne Mullin Dhs. What have you been hearing from lawmakers?
Yeah, look, the hearing so far has kind of been as partisan as the typical Democrats, you know, largely making clear their concerns for the Department of Homeland Security, their concerns under Secretary Noem, asking kind of pointed questions of Senator Mullin, what his tenure at the Department of Homeland Security would look like. Republicans have largely been speaking in support of his nomination, but there was a very glaring exception to that. Are Democrats, you know, largely making clear their concerns for the Department of Homeland Security, their concerns under Secretary Noem, asking kind of pointed questions of Senator Mullin, what his tenure at the Department of Homeland Security would look like. Republicans have largely been speaking in support of his nomination, but there was a very glaring exception to that, and I'm glad you brought it up, Holly. The very beginning of the hearing, Senator Rand Paul, in his opening statement, in his first line of questioning to Senator Markwayne Mullin, coming pretty much out of the gate with a number of character attacks, attacking his temper, his conduct while a member of the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, asking him some very pointed questions about his behavior. I want you to listen to just some of the most fiery bits of that right off the top. Take a listen.
The record should show, and I think will show, a lack of contrition. I mean, the sheer lack of any kind of self-awareness that you're going to be leading thousands of men and women who will have the use of force, and there's been great questions in our country about how that will be used, and you think a violent attack is just fine. So I guess my first question is, do you think that justifying that kind of violence sets a good example for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I didn't know the extent of your damage. When the phone call was made, I made it to you and I tried to talk to you. You didn't engage at all. In fact, you said, get your paperwork in. It's got to be in 3 days in between.
You offered no apology.
Sir?
And you offer no apology today and no regrets.
That was just one moment from that kind of fire exchange at the beginning of this hearing. He also played a compilation of times when Senator Mullin had almost gotten into an altercation in a previous Senate committee hearing just a couple of years ago with the head of the Teamsters Union. The two men have since made up. We had the opportunity to ask Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, about that. He said they've shook hands, they've put it behind them. But still, incredibly fiery remarks from the chairman, the Republican chairman of a committee, which is seeking to advance Markwayne Mullin's nomination to lead the Department of Homeland Security. So certainly a lot of questions about where things go from here. Worth noting that no Republican senators who've come out of the hearing so far, there's actually one coming out right over here, have been willing to engage in this up to this point. Senator Katie Britt avoiding all my questions about that exchange at the beginning of the hearing from the Republican chairman of the committee, Senator Rand Paul. Take a listen. In the last couple of moments, we saw the chair of the committee come after Senator Mullin. What was your reaction to that? Were you expecting him to have that strong response?
Is an incredible man. I know Senator Mullin as a person. He and Christy are the real deal. He loves his children. He's a man of faith and deep conviction. And
the chair of the committee painted him as a hothead, though.
Do you think he should have apologized, though, to the chair of the committee? This is about the homeland. This is about protecting our homeland.
Not responding to either one of those questions from me about the conduct there. The senator from Wisconsin, by the way, Rand Paul, excuse me. Ron Johnson is gaggling over here. Let's take it over here. Here, we're gonna head back over this way.
I guess we'll continue down the same path.
Do you worry that he'll make it out of committee? Do you worry that he won't make it out of committee, given the fact that the chairman clearly has issues with this nominee, and perhaps he may not get all Democratic votes?
Well, we'll find out what happens. Again, from my standpoint, I just want the American people to see Markwayne as the decent human being he is.
Were you surprised by those comments by Senator Paul?
Not overly.
You guys over to the hallway? As you can hear there, that was Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican from Wisconsin, responding there to, again, those comments from Rand Paul at the beginning of the hearing, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. There's questions, of course, about whether his nomination, Senator Markwayne Mullin's nomination, will make it out of the committee. Of course, given those harsh comments, this is, like much of Congress right now, a tightly divided committee. Certainly, there will likely need to be some support, pretty much universal support from Republicans to get this nomination to the finish line. Already, Senator John Fetterman had said, the Democrat from Connecticut, that he might vote in favor of confirming Markwayne Mullin. He then hedged those comments more yesterday. So a lot of questions here just about the future of this nomination, and certainly whether that exchange, that heated exchange that will bring you much more of next hour, will have an impact on his nomination.
All right, Scripps News senior congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed live for us on Capitol Hill. Thank you for that update, Nate.
As I've gotten older, I sweat buckets under my boobs. I'm speaking as an OBGYN now. If you can control the sweat, you're controlling one element.
Recently, Senator Mullin, if you have time to listen, You were confronted by constituents that were angry because you voted against my amendment to stop all funding for refugee welfare programs. Instead of explaining your vote to continue these welfare programs for refugees, you decided to transfer the blame. You told the media that I was a freaking snake and that you completely understood why I had been assaulted. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this violent assault that caused me so much pain and my family so much pain. I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force. You have never had the courage to look me in the eye and tell me that the assault was justified. So today you'll have your chance. Today I'll give you that chance to clear the record. Tell it to continue these welfare programs for refugees. You decided to transfer the blame. You told the media that I was a freaking snake and that you completely understood why I had been assaulted. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this violent assault that caused me so much pain and my family so much pain. I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force. You have never had the courage to look me in the eye and tell me that the assault was justified. So
Trump
today
love
you'll have your
him.
chance. Today I'll give you that chance to clear the record. Tell it to my face. If that's what you believe, tell it to me today. Tell the world why you believe I deserve to be assaulted from behind, have 6 ribs broken, and a damaged lung. Tell me to my face why you think I deserved it. And while you're at it, explain to the American public why they should trust a man with anger issues to set the
He
proper
definitely got
example
anger
for ICE
issues.
and Border
That's why
Patrol
Trump
agents.
love him.
I think before I can start my opening statement, I have to address the remarks the chairman made, calling me a liar. Sir, I think everybody in this room knows that I'm very blunt and direct to the point, and if I have something to say, I'll say it directly to your face. If you recall, back in my House days, we actually did have this conversation because of the remarks that I made. You were in a room. I simply addressed that I said I could understand because of the behavior you were having, that I could understand why the neighbor did what he did. As far as my terms of snake in the grass, sir, I work around this room to try to fix problems. I've worked with many people in this room. It seems like you fight Republicans more than you work with us. I did address those remarks. I did explain your gimmicks by the amendment you put forth. And as far as me saying that I invoke violence, I don't. I don't think anybody should be hit by surprise. I don't like that. But if I do have something to say, everybody in this room knows I'll come straight to you. I'll say it publicly and I'll say it privately, but I'll never say it behind your back. So for you to say, am I a liar, sir? That's not accurate. And I got proof to say that because you have spent millions of dollars in my campaigns against me because we just don't get along. However, sir, that doesn't keep me at all from doing my job. I can have different opinions with everybody in this room, but as Secretary of Homeland,
I need to take a break for a minute so that y'all can hit the like button. Double tap the face of your screen. It's 133 people in here. I need at least 50 of you to hit the like button. I'll wait. There's 3 dots at the top right corner. Or if you're on your phone and you don't, well, it's 3 dots at the top of your phone or your computer. I need for y'all to hit it and it'll take you to the like button. Or politely leave. Don't matter to me. Get a membership, do something other than sitting here ear hustling. How long have I been on? 2 hours and 12 minutes. What's a floating coffin? Okay, let's go.
I'll be protecting everybody, including Kentucky, as much as I will my own back garden from doing my job. I can have different opinions with everybody in this room, but as Secretary of Homeland, I'll be protecting everybody, including Kentucky, as much as I will my own back garden in Oklahoma.
The record should show, and I think will show, a lack of contrition, no apology, and no regrets for your support. You completely understand the violence that was perpetrated on me. You're unrepentant. The only thing you quibble about is whether I met you somehow when you were in the house. I don't think we ever met when you were in the house. And this idea that the only thing you're upset about is not that you were for violence. What you're upset about is that I called you a liar because you said it to my face, which really more about this machismo that you have. When in Oklahoma the media asked you about the refugee welfare programs, the programs you voted to continue funding, it was this whole idea that you were going to transfer because you were uncomfortable, your anger, low impulse control, causes you to then go after and decide that you're going to go after me as well. And so you say you completely understood that I was assaulted from behind, had 6 ribs broken and part of my lung removed, and that was just fine. That's something that you, I guess, approve of as far as resolution of political problems. When I talked to you privately on the phone, there was no apology. You just said, well, we can let our political difference, go by, and you said a few minutes ago, we can just set it aside. Well, political differences we can, but when you say that you agree with a felon, a Trump-hating felon who attacked me, somehow you think I'm just going to set that aside? Oh, it's no big deal. I lay in pain for 2 months, had 6 ribs broken, 3 of them separated, grinding upon bone for months, had part of my lung removed, and you think that's great and to be extolled. I mean, the sheer lack of any kind of self-awareness that you're going to be leading thousands of men and women who will have the use of force, and there's been great questions in our country about how that will be used, and you think a violent attack is just fine. So I guess my first question is, do you think that justifying that kind of violence sets a good example for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol?
Yep. That's why he get in that position.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I didn't know the extent of your damage. When the phone call was made, I made it to you and I tried to talk to you. You didn't engage at all. In fact, you said, get your paperwork in. It's got to be 3 days in between.
You offered no apology.
Sir?
And you offer no apology today and no regrets. Haven't heard the word apologize, haven't heard the word regret, haven't heard I misspoke and it was heated and I made a mistake. Haven't heard any of those words.
Sir, actually it wasn't heated, and I'm not apologizing for pointing out your character.
Good. So you're jolly well fine, and you want the American public and the people up here to vote, that may or may not vote for you, to know that you supported the felonious, violent attack on me from behind.
I did not say I supported it. I said I understood it. There's a difference.
So that means you really didn't approve of it, just completely understand it. What do you think most people would interpret completely understand to be? Support for or a condemnation of the violence?
Sir, as I said, we can have our differences. It's not going to keep me from doing my job as Secretary of Homeland Security. I'm going to secure Kentucky and take care of Kentucky as much as I am Oklahoma.
If this were a one-off, it would be one thing. If you just disliked me so much that you approved of violence against me, people could just write it off. Well, maybe they hate each other.
Oh, yeah, they was going at it. I see why they said.
But really, there's a pattern of this.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Feisty.
You want to do it now? I'd love to do it now. Well, stand your butt up there. You see me? Oh, stop it.
Oh, yeah, I remember this. We just watched this.
You want to do it now? I'd love to do it now. Well, stand your butt up there. You see me? Oh, stop it. No, sit down. Shut up. You're a United States Senator. Sit down. Okay, sit down. All right. Let me smart. Hold it. If he got up too,
would you have gone at it right there?
I would have probably jumped over the dais at that point.
You have to be called out. It's not this guy continues to get away with this stuff. And it's just, it's silly, it's stupid, but every now and then you get punched in the face. Well, go back to the 1800s and 1700s. They used to have canes. And tools. They used to have tools. Yeah. Right. And there's a way that men used to settle their differences. I ignored him 4 times to be part of that. And people say, yes, you're supposed to ignore it. Well, I'm not a very good Christian. I try to be a good Christian. And I know people say you're supposed to turn the other cheek. I prefer the dated method. But we need to move from an almost... I'm not afraid of Biden. I don't go by fighting. Oh, I'm going to... I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I'll do it. And I don't care where I fight about it.
In hindsight, any regrets?
No, I really don't.
So no regrets. In fact, even after your anger had cooled, you were still bragging that if he'd only been brave enough to stand up, you'd have jumped over the dais and taught him a lesson, because that's how men should settle their differences. Do you think fighting as a resolution for political differences is a good example for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol?
As you can notice over my shoulder here is my good friend Sean O'Brien. Both of us have had conversations. Both of us have shaken hands. Both of us agreed we could have done things different. Sean is someone that has become a close friend. We talk all the time. I've been on his podcast. We talked through this. That's how you handle your differences.
He brought him there
Not
on
like this,
purpose
Chairman.
to be there in support.
I'm glad you guys are friends now and that you've reconciled. But really, it doesn't get to the real point whether or not you think violence is the way we settle things. In the days after
he
the
did
fight,
not
you
answer.
said, and I quote, sometimes people just need to be punched in the face, reconciled. But really, it doesn't.
How you handle your differences. Not like this, Chairman.
I'm glad you guys are friends now and that you've reconciled.
Sean is someone that has become a close friend. We talk all the time. I've been on his podcast. We talked through this. That's how you handle your differences. Not like this, Chairman.
I'm glad you guys are friends now and that you've reconciled. But really, it doesn't get to the real point whether or not you think violence is the way we settle things.
Yeah, because you didn't answer the question.
In the days after the fight, you said, and I quote, sometimes people just need to be punched in the face. Is that still your opinion, that political disputes can sometimes and often only be resolved by violence?
No, I don't always agree with that. I don't believe in political violence. I've made that very clear. But sometimes people do need, theoretically speaking, sir, I get it. It's about character assassination for you. That's the way this game is played. I understand it. And you are making this about you, which is fine, but that doesn't keep me as Secretary of Homeland Security.
Character assassination when you were the one lauding the assault. Who do you think started that character assassination? I'm just repeating what you have done in character assassination. I'm repeating your support.
Your action.
For the assault. So that's somehow something I started?
No, sir. What I'm saying is you're adding a lot to it.
Yeah.
Handle
your business.
Many interviews in which you justified the violence as historically justified by precedents, such as caning and dueling. Is it today your opinion that the caning of Charles Sumner was not justified, but argues still for resolving our political differences with violence?
What I was simply pointing out is some of the rules that still apply to this body. For instance, dueling with 2 consenting adults is still there. I was pointing out what is still
illegal for 170 years. There's no precedent for legal dueling. Even then, they fled the country. Do you realize that the man that beat Charles Sumner with a cane, he beat him till he was unconscious? And you know why no senators intervened? Because his friend held a gun on the other senators, and he kept beating him until he crushed his skull.
Oh, wow.
That's what you're insinuating is the precedent of the Senate, and that's what you live by. That is a very, very dangerous sentiment.
Thank you.
This is Jack. He's an entrepreneur, and he wants to set up a professional website so his customers...
After a half a dozen victory lap interviews where you pointed out that the union guy was just lucky that fear kept him from standing up, Dana Bash asked you if you have any regrets about bringing violence to a Senate committee, and you replied that you have no regrets. Today you've said you have no regrets about being happy, being completely understanding why I was attacked from behind. You had no regrets about, instigating a brawl in a Senate committee hearing. Are those still your opinions?
Mr. Chairman, you're going to have your opinion. I'm going to have mine. As the Secretary of Homeland Security, I'm going to bring peace of mind and security to this country, and I'm going to stay laser focused on that.
CNN correspondent Priscilla Alvarez is here with us as well. Priscilla, there were some major fireworks right out of the gate in the exchange between Senator Markwayne Mullin and the chairman of the committee, Rand Paul. It got pretty ugly. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, this was immediately an intense hearing at kickoff between the Republican chairman, Rand Paul, and Senator Markwayne Mullin, dating back to some history the two of them have, specifically as it relates to an attack by Rand Paul's neighbor in 2017 and the comments made by Markwayne Mullin at the time. And so Rand Paul and Senator Markwayne Mullin were going back and forth about that exchange, and Rand Paul pressing him on whether he regretted anything that he said then. Not only that, but also the way that he confronted a witness during a separate hearing a couple of years ago as well. Essentially, the argument being made was whether he felt that he had the temperament to be the Homeland Security Secretary, and whether this was the model that he intended to role model, rather, for the federal agents within the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the senator didn't necessarily respond to that. He pointed back to Sean O'Brien, who he's had disputes with before, saying that now they are friends. He also did not apologize to Senator Paul over his comments at the time over that 2017 attack. But all of this really manifested in this very intense start to this hearing, again, between two Republican senators, the chairman and Senator Markwayne Mullin, who is testifying for this role of Homeland Security Secretary. I will also say beyond that, there have been some notable comparisons and contrasts being made between the senator and Secretary Noem. For example, he said that he would own his mistakes. He also said, quote, "My goal in 6 months is that we're not in the lead story every day." He also went on to say that he regretted his statements after the shootings of the two U.S. citizens by federal agents in Minneapolis, saying that he, quote, "went there too fast." So as this hearing is going, you can already start to see how he's trying to differentiate himself from Secretary Noem, who, of course, was under immense scrutiny for the way that she managed the Department of Homeland Security, not only among senators, but also within the department itself.
At first, they might look like ordinary glasses, but the moment you wear them, everything changes.
Okay, y'all, I'm finna hang it up. I'll be back later on. What's this? Trump threatened to leave now.
All right, good morning and welcome to Breaking Points. To the thousands of new premium subscribers that we have, we should show people around a little bit, right?
Apparently the floors just got cleaned.
Yeah, so somebody complained. They said whenever there's the over the head shot, they can see that the floor is kind of a mess. So you know what? We clean it up for the new guests.
We listen.
So, you know, you're welcome.
Promises made, promises kept.
That's right, and thank you for the suggestion. There's a comment section on YouTube. You're welcome to, so for long-time viewers, be nice to everybody in there.
Anything
let them know.
If we need to tidy anything up, just let us know. Mac apparently reads every comment and will act on it quickly.
Yeah, let them know how this works. There's also a Reddit. You've got to be careful over there, I think, right? With Reddit.
No comment on the Reddit.
Did you see that?
No comment on the Reddit.
Because AIs are training themselves on Reddit threads, they keep telling people that no matter what their question is, the answer is you should break up with that person.
No, I didn't.
It's like, no, it's a math question. They're like, yeah, you should leave them.
2 + 2 equals get the hell out of that relationship.
Yes. Anyway, so welcome, thank you, and we hope you stick around because only that first month was free. You're gonna have to pay after that.
Yes, but it's worth it to help us keep doing the independent journalism, cleaning the floors, apparently. And we got a big show today. Donald Trump.
Best in Jerusalem. You want to count fingers? No need,
Oh, everybody got one now on coffee. Even Trump. RTP, thank you for sharing. You're welcome, Janet. Let me see something right quick.
Given the wild gyration.
Well, the Federal Reserve meets today to decide whether interest rates should go up or down, thumbs up or thumbs down on Donald Trump's economy as they try to figure out what the war in Iran that Donald Trump started and can't figure out how to end, what it means for the U.S. economy. It is unlikely that at 2 o'clock today
I don't want to hear about that. Because, not right now. Hopefully he'll stand his grounds and not give in to Trump like he hasn't. Let me see.
I'm Jack Schlossberg. Donate to our campaign. Send me to Congress so we can fix what's broken in Washington.
Are confirming that they've just targeted Donald Trump's unlawful war against Iran is spiraling out of control. Things are escalating. The United States and Israel are confirming that they've just targeted Iran's largest natural gas processing facility earlier this morning in southern Iran. Iranian reports indicate that these facilities are affiliated with the South Pars offshore gas field, were struck by Israel. Israel said, we did this with the United States. This is massive escalation, folks. That is how Iran is perceiving it as well. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, they've now issued evacuation orders for 4 energy facilities in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates following this morning's Israeli, and we know these are joint Israeli-U.S. strikes against energy infrastructure in southern Iran. And these facilities include the major facilities in those nations that I mentioned. A spokesperson for Qatar's foreign minister just issued the following statement. The Israeli targeting of facilities linked to Iran's South Pars field, which is an extension of Qatar's North field, is a dangerous and irresponsible step amid the current military escalation in the region. Targeting energy infrastructure constitutes a threat to global energy security as well as to the people of the region and its environment. We reiterate, as we have repeatedly emphasized, the necessity of avoiding the targeting of vital facilities. We call on all parties to exercise restraint, adhere to international law, and work toward de-escalation in a manner that preserves security and stability in the region. Now, we're hearing from Donald Trump right now. Moments ago, he posted on his social media platform. Let's see how he is addressing this escalation. Donald Trump writes, I wonder what would happen if we, quote, finished off, end quote, what's left of the Iranian terror state and let the countries that use it, we don't, be responsible for the so-called straight, and then he spells it STRAIGHT. That would get some of our non-responsive allies in gear and fast. DJT. That's your response to all of this right now? What are they saying in Iran right now? Iran is, their leaders are saying, we previously made clear and repeated warnings that were given to rulers in Arab nations about entering down this dangerous path and gambling with the fate of your nations. And they say, evacuate now, or hitting your energy facilities. Wow, wow, wow. We now see right now, Bloomberg is reporting, folks, that multiple oil and gas facilities in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, they've been evacuated right now as a result of these. They're calling it Israeli strikes, but Israel's saying we did it with the United States. Israel strikes this morning against several energy sites in southern Iran and threats made by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard against these facilities. We're hearing now from the chief propagandist at the White House, Caroline Leavitt. She says, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz for our energy. Let's just let the others deal with it. Here's what she said. Let's play this clip.
Has there been any movement overnight on behalf of our allies that has softened their position about going through the Strait of Hormuz?
Not overnight, but the president and his team, especially Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio, continue to be in touch with their counterparts in Europe and, of course, our allies in the Arab and Gulf region to step up and do more to help the United States in securing the Strait of Hormuz. This is to their benefit, more so than it is to the benefit of the United States. Thanks to President Trump, we are a net exporter of energy. We don't need the Strait of Hormuz for our energy here at home, for the American people. Of course, we want the strait to be open for the global oil market and to stabilize prices and bring them down again. And we have options, the military has options to continue doing that. But the president is right to call on our allies to step up to do more. You know.
And then Caroline Levitt says, NATO is being very unfair to us right now. Very unfair, NATO. This is the messaging from the White House right now during this massive escalation as oil's it's going to hit $150 a barrel soon, and you're attacking NATO. Here, play this clip.
You know, one of President Trump's guiding principles is fairness, and he has long called out NATO for being what he believes an unfair alliance for the American people, the American taxpayer, and our U.S. armed forces.
It's not our war.
You look at some of the trade deals with our NATO allies.
He shouldn't be
the president has worked to renegotiate and reset those to make them more fair for the American people and American workers. You look at the fact that the United States has thousands of troops on our allies in NATO's soil. We're paying these countries billions of dollars, and our troops on their soil serves as a deterrent for them. And the president wants to be treated fairly.
That don't mean you have the right to take advantage.
And he's right to call that out, and he's right to call on them to step up and do more, especially when reopening the strait benefits them even more than it does the United States of America.
There are troubles here at home as well. The Department of Homeland Security remains shut down, and Markwayne Mullin has his hearing. We're going to hear from him.
More from Caroline Levitt right here. She says, rest assured, everybody, there is a plan. Here, play this clip.
What is the plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
The president is going to continue to talk to our allies, both in Europe and also in the Gulf and Arab region. The United States military has a lot of capabilities, as you have seen play out over the last 18 days. And they still do have tricks up their sleeve. I won't broadcast them for the media, but rest assured there is a plan. They're working on it. We have seen some progress with respect to that, but of course the president, again, continues to call on our allies to step up and do more. Nancy.
Now we're hearing from Commodore Ali Raza Tangsiri, the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. He just put out the following statement, and he says, your presence on the streets has become our trump card, and from now on it will lead to new equations in the region. With the target bank updated, hashtag oil facilities associated with America are now on par with American bases and will come under fire with full force. We warn citizens and workers, stay away from these facilities. There's a Senate hearing taking place right now with Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. You'll recall Joe Kent, who is her number 2, resigned based on his objection to the war in Iran. He resigned yesterday. Senator Warner just cross-examined Tulsi Gabbard about Donald Trump, saying that he was shocked and surprised that Iran has been retaliating against its neighbors and shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, which everybody knew was going to happen. It should also be noted that the Trump regime, based on the advice, if you want to call it that, of Laura Loomer, also got rid of one of their top Iranian advisors as well in the past few weeks. But here's what Warner says to Gabbard. So do you not tell Donald Trump these things? Because it's pretty obvious to everybody that what's going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz, what's going to happen with the neighboring Arab nations. And Tulsi Gabbard has just been having one of the worst hearings imaginable. I mean, because she's just a liar with everything. Here's what she says. Here, play this clip.
He chose to omit the parts that contradict the president. The president continues to say as well that, he had no idea, was shocked that the Iranians would move to take over the Strait of Hormuz. Did you provide any intelligence that would say that it would be, that it was not likely that the Iranians would try to move on the strait?
I'm not aware of those remarks, and I think those of us here at the table can point to the fact that historically the Iranians have always threatened
to leverage their control over
Why would the
Strait
president
of
say he was
Hormuz.
amazed?
I'm not aware of those remarks.
What about the comments the president made that thought that he was surprised again? Reports that Iran struck the adjacent Gulf states.
Again, I'm not aware of those remarks. We have
Well, let me
been
ask
and
you this.
continue to
Did
provide
you
the
brief the president? Did you brief the president? Did you brief the president if he starts a war of choice, that the likely result would be that Iran would strike adjacent Gulf nations and close the Strait of Hormuz? Did you brief him on those two facts that I think have been consistently the assumptions of the intelligence community?
I have not and won't divulge internal conversations. I will say that those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
Senator, real quick, I need to tell you about one of my favorite sponsors, Smart Credit. Your credit score may have taken a big hit over the holidays, and you may not even know it. I know I didn't. Sure, a late payment hurts, but so does opening a store. Upward change to secure better rates on everything you find. smartcredit.com/Midas and start your 7-day trial. But I think you'll be excited to see how many cancel anytime. That's Smart Producer Price Index readout coming hotter than anybody expected, and that was the pre-war Producer Price Index. So if this war wasn't going on and we got this PPI readout, we would be like, holy SH, you know what I'm going to say next. This is bad. Now you layer it on top of the war when we get those PPI readouts and those inflation readouts, folks. I don't think it's an exaggeration that inflation will soon be going above 5%. And you can be like, oh, Ben, you're being hyperbolic again. Watch. Inflation will be above 5%, I think, clearly by the end of this year. Perhaps even higher where things are going right now. But here's how they reported on CNBC the new horrible inflation data. Here, play this clip.
What does that tell you? I mean, I understand the short term, we're taking the Fed activity out from the 2-year, and that's why you see those spreads kind of get compressed. The long end, does that tell you anything about how people are seeing the health of the economy down the road, or is it something else?
I do think that there is part of that reflected in this as well. It's almost the worst of both worlds. I guess stagflation would come close to describing the situation. We're probably not going to see Fed easing, and the long end, well, part of it is weakness. We've had a spat of some fairly weak numbers, and then you put in the fact that we are on the PCE, 3% handle on some of the Fed's favorite metrics, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out today.